let me just play the little bit of that music, that the auld lang syne aggressive that I found.
Happy fucking New Year.
This is honestly how we should start it. A full year. 365 days of movies.
3 dudes. Too many thoughts.
And it all comes to a head when the new year hits.
Will they get all their thoughts out before the ball drops?
And then you have the audio. 10, 9. Oh my God. That'd be fantastic.
8.
Oh man.
We haven't lost a year yet.
I'll be damned if we're going to lose one on my watch.
Welcome to Afterthoughts, everybody. This is our 2024 Retrospectacular episode. Yay!
Yay! We made it, everybody! Yay!
We have survived into 2025.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd make it, but we're here. We're still alive, at least in whatever consciousness this is. I am your host, Michael Dixon. With me, as always, the normal crew, Ryan King. How is your new year? Or what's up with you?
It was good. Yeah, I got some travel in, got some beach time. Looking back over the movies for the year, I don't think this was a very good year for movies. I'm interested in.
I would agree with you.
This was a great movie here. I don't know what you're talking about. But my brain's also rotted from what was October, so
Yes,
maybe I'm wrong.
And that's John Garcia. John, what's up?
Hey, everybody. I'm just excited to look back on all of the shit I've watched this year and realize that I need to do better. You know, every year I have to come to that moment where I'm like, I'm going to do better, and then I relapse like a week after. So
It does take me long to get back.
yet
into
again,
it.
another time.
I'm honestly just shocked that we haven't all died in a nuclear apocalypse throughout this whole year. I just assumed it would happen, and somehow it hasn't yet. So probably like next week that'll occur.
Yeah.
But
we'll still like try to record after from the bunker that we all take shelter in.
Sure.
We'll see how it
I
goes.
mean, we have 10 women for every man, and we will not allow a mine shaft
we'll
gap.
not allow a podcast gap.
Nice.
Cool. Well, if you are familiar with our Retrospectacular episodes, we kind of all talk about our favorite and least favorite things from the past year. So this is always one of my favorite episodes of the year. So I'm excited to get into it. We kind of have some common categories that we will all go through, and then we'll break off into some separate categories and then kind of bring it back at the end for one or two common categories at the end. So to kick us off, we always talk about the movies that we have done here on the podcast. And so we're going to start out with the best podcast movie of the year. Ryan, what was your best podcast movie of 2024?
I think because I'm going to recategorize something later, I'm going to go kind of with what my second was, but I'll say Iron Claw. I think
Nice.
as an overall like movie, I think it hit every beat. I know you guys told me I was gonna like it, and like I knew I was gonna like it. But I still think I I liked it maybe more than I thought I necessarily would. Like I appreciated this story, and I knew going into it kind of what it was and what was going to be presented. But I think the acting and the casting just put it over the top for me. Really
Nice.
nailed it.
Yeah. And we were happy that you followed through and finally watched it.
I've watched a
discuss
few
it.
things. I've finally gotten through a few things that we've talked about over the many years.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Iron Claw is a fucking great movie. I saw it last Christmas with my mom at the movie theater, and it was
Just
a devastating Christmas. But it does it's crazy. Like there's so much awful tragedy in that movie, and it's such this terrifyingly sad story, and then somehow it ends on this hopeful note, and it almost feels like a magic trick that the director is able to pull that off. That by the end you're like leaving the movie like hopeful for life going forward, and that Kevin Von Erich was able to find some form of what he wanted in life throughout, despite all the shit that he was going through and all the horrible things happening to all his brothers. It's kind of a crazy movie that you're able to like walk out of it not feeling like you want to kill yourself.
Yeah. Still having some kind of optimism. Yeah.
Yeah. I showed that to so many people after I saw it, and I was like, man, I'm just waiting. I still owe you, Ryan, the Iron Claw foam hand that I have.
Oh, good point.
I've never made good on that. I need to wrap it up and ship it to you so that you can show your appreciation. Put it on your mantle. But yeah, I mean, I would agree that would have been one of my best podcast movies, but I was looking over the list and I was like, I know Ryan's going to put this somewhere, so I probably shouldn't include this.
Well, speaking of, John, what was your best podcast movie of the year?
I think, so looking through the full list, it was our first of 2024. Harakiri was, I think, what we first did in the year. And I think that ended up being my best, just because I was in a dark place at the place I was working at. And Harakiri kind of was like sacrificing yourself to show the fucking incompetence and corruption of an organization that you're part of. Mm-hmm. So I felt like it just resonated so well with me at the time. And it was just such a gripping fucking movie that when I looked over the list of everything we'd done, I was like, it's hard not to say that is, probably my top, because it was the one thing that like really rang true for me. And I was like, oh, I love this. And I hadn't seen it or known about it before.
Yeah, this is a recommendation from our listener Tyler. I fucking loved Harakiri. It was an incredible film. Like it's rare to see a movie that like really has no weak spots. Like it does everything so well. The story is incredibly gripping. The characters are great. The cinematography is beautiful. The score is great. Like there's nothing that the movie does wrong, and it's just a joy to watch. It's a fucking great movie.
Yeah.
It definitely leaves you like thinking afterwards about it too, right? Like it sort of sticks with you.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't watched it again since we watched it for that, but I think it's because it's so striking and I remember so much of it that I kind of want to let it sit for a bit and then go back to it. But it's one of those I won't forget.
I've been in thinking back on the year of the podcast. I've been wanting to go back and watch that movie, and I haven't had a chance because I've been trying to catch up on some things for this. But I'm excited to go back and revisit it.
Yeah. So that was my best. I'm curious though, Dixon, what is your best?
Yes, so I did a little list here. I did a top 5 and an honorable mention. So I wanted to do an honorable mention to Another Round, which I thought was just like a super fun episode.
A chaotic fucking episode.
Yeah. Like as we were getting drunk on Sazeracs talking about that movie, just like I love Mads Mikkelsen in that movie, and I think it was just a really fun time. Then I have a top 5, 5 Singing in the Rain, 4 JFK, 3 Dog Day Afternoon, 2 Harakiri, and number 1, to no one's surprise, is Silence. So Silence is my favorite film of all time. We've referenced it a lot on this podcast, and then we finally did an episode on it this year. John was like, Dixon, you have to talk about this. Like, we have to do an episode on Silence. So, Ryan missed out on that one, unfortunately, but I think it's just such a powerful film that has had such a profound impact on my life and made me reassess how I view the world and how I view religion and politics and a lot of different things. And I think it's just a fascinating film that is like I've seen it, probably 7 or 8 times now, and it's just like it hits just as hard every time I watch it. And I had a great time discussing it with you, John, and with Parker, our guest.
Yeah.
So it's a fun episode.
Yeah, got to get 2 Catholics on an episode to talk about 2 Catholics.
Yeah, I'm just a Protestant, or a lapsed Protestant, so I don't really have the the full authority to speak on it. So
yeah, we'll get more Protestants on for the first Reformed episode.
There we go. Yeah. Ryan, did you catch up with Silence?
No, I haven't. It is on the short list because it's on that short list if we keep talking about it, but I haven't gotten a chance to watch it. But yeah, no, I do still want to catch up with that.
And I'm going to go back to it again because I think when I was watching it this last time for the episode, there were a lot of other things going on. So it was kind of like a rushed viewing. I wouldn't say that I wasn't paying attention to it. But I definitely didn't get all of the thoughts like watching it that I wanted to, because I think I was like stressed about work and some other shit. And also the Blu-ray froze halfway through.
Oh no.
Ooh.
So I had to start it digitally, like for me and Parker. So
Ooh.
I don't think we mentioned that, but it happened, and I was like, damn it, that like totally threw me off even more. Now I want to watch it again.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie that you want to like sit in and like be in that environment. So that's got to be not a great viewing experience to have to do that.
Yeah. So there are a few interrupts that I owe it like a full rewatch and hopefully unhindered this next time. So yeah, want to go back to it.
Cool. Well, with that, the next category is the worst podcast movie of 2024. Ryan, what was your worst podcast movie?
We all gonna say it?
I think there's some where probably you guys have, but I was gonna lean towards saying JFK.
Oh
yeah!
no!
Oh shit!
Oh,
nice,
that was in my
Ryan.
top 5.
Get
wow.
him, Ryan.
Oh yeah, no, it was divisive, right? That was a divisive conversation.
Yep.
I think looking back at it, there were others that weren't good, but at least were trying something.
Ryan, do you remember we watched the Primevals?
I was gonna say, which is probably Primevals. I wrote it I wrote down like my possible worst ones, and Primevals was definitely there. So was Soft and Quiet. Like that was pretty disappointing.
Oh yeah.
But I kind of feel like both of those really were trying to go for something interesting, and JFK just felt so beating you over the head and in like
right,
like
it's a riddle
with a
wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma.
Yes, yeah. It's claiming it's painting some beautiful art piece, but it's using one of those big rollers. Like it's just fucking hard paint all over everything.
Beating your head back into the left, Ryan. Back into
Yes,
the left.
yeah. And I feel like as a viewing experience, that one was pretty agonizing for me. I don't know why, but it was a stretch to get through that.
You are incorrect, sir.
Yeah.
It's because it feels like Oliver Stone made a documentary in a Neil Breen style, Ryan. Is that why you were?
Yeah, right. Almost.
I know exactly how Ryan thinks about it. I enjoyed JFK, Dixon. Don't worry.
Thank you. Kevin Costner's accent is bad. He should not try to do a Cajun accent. The real man he was playing did not have a Cajun accent, but he chose to do one anyway.
Did Kevin Costner do any accents in that Horizon movie?
Just like a general Western cowboy thing.
Of course he
like,
did. I bet that's like the closest he's gotten to doing a good accent.
Yeah. John, what was your worst podcast movie of the year?
It was Cashback. It was hands down Cashback.
That was on the short list too.
That's definitely like one of those that, don't get me wrong, I'm kind of glad that it's there now because I knew at some degree it was going to be bad, but I didn't know how bad. And so watching it and getting to shit talk it with you guys, it was great. It was liberating. You know, most people, they probably have cognitive dissonance that forms where they're like, you know what, that's still a good movie, even though, you know, it's not as great or whatever. But I was immediately like, nah, fuck this. But Punisher 2004 is still.
But you understand, he like really loves women, John.
Yeah, he just really loves them. When I do see like any kind of food item that's spilled, I think it's a chance to appreciate still life, though. That's the only good joke that I got from that movie. So, but yeah, that was my worst, and I'm comfortable owning that.
Yeah, that was terrible. It felt like a 13-year-old writing a script about just how hard it is to be horny all the time. But the lead character was like 25 or something.
It's like Holden Caulfield goes to art school.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, I'm so sensitive and artistic, but I just fucking love titties. And it's just like, oh my, no one cares. Like,
oh my god.
Oh man. All right, my worst podcast movie of the year. I had a bottom 3. I usually do a bottom 5, but I thought we only talked about 3 bad movies this year. Mm-hmm. We've mentioned them all so far. The Primevals, Cashback, and my worst was Soft and Quiet. I thought it was just such a mess of a movie. Like, so if you didn't listen to the Soft and Quiet episode, it's about Nazis, like modern day white suburban mom Nazis. And it was just like, it starts out like there's a reveal that you like learn that they're Nazis, and it's kind of shocking. And you're like, oh my God. And it's like, oh, wait, this is interesting. Where is this going? And then it goes into just this just unravels completely into this wild, insane thing where they're like murdering people and trying to cover up for the murders because like they like murder somebody who like looks at them weird. It just completely spirals out of control, and it's like this suburban mom who's like trying to get her passive husband to be like a macho alpha male and like do murder for her to defend her honor, and it's like it's so dope. Was it a single shot?
Yes,
movie?
it was a one-er. It was done in a one-er
one
style.
take movie that just like it's so just disorienting and jarring to watch, and it just like jumps the shark so hard and just becomes this crazy ass thing. And I don't know. I didn't know what the fuck it was trying to say or do, and it was not good.
I think on that episode, and I still hold this to like it is primed to be a Tarantino-esque revenge story by the end, and it just doesn't. And that is like the worst part of it, because everything leading up to that, if you recontextualized it by having an ending where they all died horrifically and you watched it happen, would have been fucking hilarious. Like it just doesn't know. It's just like pain and suffering and agony. And I agree that it was just it's not what I wanted.
And the characters are so stupid. They're all just making decisions that no human being would ever make. And it's just like just some of the dumbest characters I've seen on screen in quite some time.
You know, what would be funny is if that you could do a double feature of this, but it would be those characters are walking out of the theater with Reagan in it. And that's how it starts.
And they're all hyped up. They're all excited coming out of it, like high-fiving.
He took down communism with words.
Oh, my God.
Okay, yeah. So overall, good podcast here, I think. We only had 3 movies that I thought were bad, and Ryan's take on JFK is just stupid. So,
Wow.
Anyway, the next category we have is the best discovered movie of 2024. So something that you found for the first time in 2024, but was not released in the year 2024. John, what was your best discovered movie of the year?
So I had a twofer for this. I discovered Little Darlings this year, not Strange Darling. That is also a movie I discovered, but it came out this year. Little Darlings was, I feel like maybe I recommended it. I don't even know if I talked
I think you did.
But yeah, it was like a recommend or refute thing. It's, a coming of age story about a young girl trying to like score her first time. The whole premise is she goes to camp and she's dared to like try to score, lose her virginity. And it's just a sweet and it's the anti-boner comedy, kind of antidote in the 80s. And
a flaccid comedy.
Yeah. And I found it to be very sweet and endearing, and it has like just a nice arc for it. It's also got a young Matt Dillon, which is weird to see, but whatever. And then paired with that is Riddle of Fire, because I saw both of those this year. They both seem to be about the loss of innocence or the preservation of innocence and like kind of like child hijinks. And I think that those movies both just pair really nicely and were a delightful treat to discover.
Is it Riddle of Fire a new movie this year?
It came out last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I didn't see it until Vinegar Syndrome shipped me my copy. And then I sort of like was like, oh, I totally kind of forgot about it. I remember seeing it in a Chunking Express, like a trailer for right before Chunking Express and the Draft House. And I was like, oh, I want to see whatever that is. And then I forgot about it and rediscovered it. But both just have kind of like sweet moments. They also have sort of sad, somber moments, but totally different tones, different kind of like experiences, perspectives brought to them. But I think they make a good pair. So
awesome. I've heard good things about that Blu-ray too for Little Darlings.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, what was your best discovered movie of the year?
This was almost my best podcast movie, but I thought this was the spot to put it. But for me, Hundreds of Beavers was
nice.
really stand out. It was even more than I expected. Really just such a blast. Gone back already and rewatched it, like recommended it to people. Like that's definitely one that's going to stick around in my, hey, this is a great movie that people are not seeing, and recommending it out to people.
Technically, that is a 2024 release, Ryan.
Well, it's one of those. It came out though in 2023. It's one of those
been on the
weird,
festival circuit for like multiple years, and then it was like
Yeah.
finally available online in 2024. But yeah,
I don't know how I handle those. There's a bunch of those with the anime where I'm like, or like foreign animation where I'm like, where does it fall? And is it last year or this year?
That's when you get into debating, like it's like the Gremlins rules, where you're like, "What if you feed them after midnight in like Hawaii?" Or like, how does that?
I use the Oscar rules, which is that it has to have a U.S. release in the calendar year.
You're an America First guy, huh?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, Hundreds of Beavers is fucking great. Like, just like live action Looney Tunes done in the best way possible, with like so much great animation done in the live action to just like I was shocked that they were able to keep it up for so long. Like it's like what, an hour 45, and like it seems like a premise that would be good for like 15-minute short, and it works for the entirety of the movie. I was laughing my ass off the entire time.
It builds so well. Yeah, I kept trying to get my dad to watch it, and he kept kind of blowing me off, and then I tricked him into watching it because I just put it on and started watching it, and he came in and he was like, "What the hell is this?" And I was like, "Just watch, it's kind of funny." And then he sat and he watched the whole thing, and he had the best time ever. And I was like, "I told you, I knew you'd like this."
There was a period of time where, like, after I had watched, a couple weeks after I had watched it for the podcast, and people randomly in my life were asking me like, "Hey, what's like something good that you've seen recently?" And I was like, "Oh, Hundreds of Beavers. It's great. It's about like a dude trying to hunt beavers, and all the beavers are played by dudes in mascot costumes, and it's like live action Looney Tunes." And people are just staring at me like, yep, never watching that.
It's very hard to explain, even seeing the trailer.
But yeah, just such a creative film, and like just fucking blast to watch.
And one of a kind. Yeah.
Dixon, what about you?
Yeah, so my best discovered movie of 2024 was Harakiri. Loved that movie. Really want to get back to it. I think just the story is so fascinating to me because like there's all this tension throughout the whole movie where I have the samurai coming into this samurai place. I forget what they're called, the fort or whatever. Dojo, whatever. Yeah, and he's like, asking to commit suicide in their courtyard, and then the guy's like, "You sure you want to do this? Let me sit you down and tell you a tale of what happened to the last guy who came in here and did this." And like there's just all this tension throughout the movie as it keeps moving toward that moment of like, no, I'm gonna do this, and like getting toward into kind of nobody wants to go through with it. And it's just like such a fascinating film, and such an interesting destruction of government and massive systems that like exist to keep people poor, and like the individual poor man's plight to just like all he can really do is give them the middle finger, but he does it in such a glorious way. And just an absolutely beautiful film. And
it does feel like sort of an anti Kurosawa samurai film. It's not a glorification of the samurai. If anything, it really highlights how much
it's like a massive shit on the samurai.
Yes. How much there's that hypocrisy within it, but also their system of honor is kind of gross. Like it isn't something necessarily to be glorified.
Yeah. It's one of those, like, it's like how the Green Knight was kind of deconstructive of chivalry.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I'm always fascinated by movies like that. They're like, oh yeah, you think this like romantic institution that we've made all these movies about that glorify this thing, like actually it sucks, and we're just gonna tear it down from its foundations and expose why it's all bullshit. Like I always enjoy those types of movies, and Harakiri is like the best of that kind of movie that I've ever seen. All right, our next category is the worst discovered movie of 2024. Ryan, what is the worst movie that you saw in 2024 that was not released in the year 2024?
Something in the Puppet Master franchise.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, somewhere in that Puppet Master legacy, or
how many Puppet Master
Nazi
movies did you watch?
I don't remember.
13? Double digit, right?
Yes.
God,
definitely double digits.
Oh, thank God it wasn't more Air Bud.
15. It was 15.
Wow.
Jesus.
Yeah, so somewhere in there, it all kind of blurs together. I do think that like the Puppet Master Legacy is the one that is just all flashbacks and clips. That is probably the worst. It is also one of those like, when we talk about, John and I have talked about the like qualifying a bad movie, and that there's something like The Room that is a bad movie. Like functionally, it is a movie. Still, like it has characters and a plot, and it's clear what's going on. It's just really bad at executing on it. And then there are things that are bad, but they don't even get being a movie. Like, they don't even understand how a movie works, and that's what this falls into, where it's like, just, it's not a movie.
It's a montage.
Yes, yes.
Sequences.
It is a just 90-minute montage of previous movies.
Oh God.
That sounds absolutely horrible.
All hosted by Troy McClure.
Yeah, it's also wonderful because it's trying to give continuity to something that absolutely does not have continuity. Like, I was floored by how every Puppet Master movie just didn't give a fuck about the previous Puppet Master movies. And then they created one to try to put it all together, but in doing so, created another problem in the continuity with a character that had previously died, now wasn't dead. Right? But they ignored that. That never mattered again either. So it's just complete nonsense.
It's fucking fine. They should make a series of horror movies that are about canon being a monster. And how, like, the canon of a timeline constantly fucking with people.
Coming
it's like
back
Final
to get
Destination, but like more meta and stupid.
That sounds really bad. Yeah. John, what was your worst discovered movie this year?
It's Quigley. It's Quigley.
Quigley? What is that?
It's a 2003 film with Oz Perkins and Gary Busey.
Oh.
Where it's one of those, like, it's a similar, like, to what Ryan was saying, a movie that doesn't know that it's a movie, like it's trying desperately to be a movie, but it doesn't fucking know what the pieces are. It's all about Gary Busey as a businessman who loves business more than anything, and he hates people.
Okay, he's miscast.
Because he loves business?
No, that's not Gary Busey role.
So Gary Busey, he like almost hits a dog, swerves his car because he's not paying attention until then, hits a tree and dies, and gets reincarnated as a dog to punish him.
Oh my God.
And now he has to, basically it's like if they made Ebenezer Scrooge into a dog and he had to fix all of the problems he had made in his lifetime.
That sounds like the South Park joke movie about Rob Schneider being a carrot.
Yeah, it's got that kind of vibe.
It sounds like that.
And Gary Busey just goes around with a collar on talking to Oz Perkins, who's his angel. Oz Perkins, director of Gretel and Hansel.
And Longlegs.
And Longlegs. Yeah, and like any chance they get, they'll swap Gary Busey out with this tiny, like, Pomeranian that's like pushing chairs, or like if Gary Busey's doing something with a prop, they'll swap it out and have the dog doing something with the prop. And that was like the funniest part.
Wait, is it not like a dog with Gary Busey doing the voiceover?
No,
it's just
Gary Busey.
Yes and no. Yeah. Yes and no. They can't decide.
I thought you said he was reincarnated as a dog.
Yeah, he's a dog now, but everybody sees him as a dog, but he's himself still.
Oh,
and
my
so like
God.
he's like, I gotta pee on this tree, and he'll like lift his leg. He's like,
holy shit.
Yeah, when you see those parts, that's what they got Gary Busey for. Like, that is the correct casting.
It's
an insane man with a collar pretending to dog pee on a tree. Yes,
fucking
perfect. Gary
unhinged,
Busey.
and yeah, I regret discovering it.
Was this a Schlocktober pick?
No, this was in like May or like April, I think.
John, you're just living in Schlocktober all the time.
I think I had a buddy in town, and he was like, "Oh man, I've heard about Quigley. Let's watch that." And we both were just like, what the fuck?
Do you own this movie?
No, I don't. We watched it on Tubi, I think.
Of course you
It's
did.
a 4K restoration.
Yeah, that's right. I did not go out and buy this immediately after.
Oh my God.
So yes, Quigley was mine.
Okay. My worst discovered movie of the year was a movie I watched with you, John, here in this garage. On your 3D Blu-ray player, XXX: The Return of Xander Cage.
Oh my God.
Just a god-awful action movie that is clearly just like Vin Diesel needing to do something between Fast and Furious movies, and they made this, and holy shit, it's so bad. Clearly not shot in 3D, but for some reason they put it out in 3D, and it's like probably the worst 3D I've ever seen. Like,
yeah, as long as you stay away from watching Jupiter Ascending, it's the worst 3D you've ever seen.
I try my best. But yeah, holy shit. Just like the dumbest story ever. It's like Sam Jackson, because he's always the guy that recruits the superheroes for some reason. It's like finds Vin Diesel and he's like, you got to get back in the game, man. The device that controls all the military satellites has been stolen. It's like, wait, there's a single device that controls all the military satellites. Just some rando walked out of the office with it and can now like bomb, whatever they want.
God, I forgot Tony Collette's in that movie.
Only Barack Obama is supposed to do that. Yeah, holy shit, Tony Collette is in that. Wow, just completely wasting her time. Really, just like, we watched it thinking, oh, this will be like a funny, stupid Vin Diesel action movie. It was very stupid. It was not fun, stupid. It was like a real,
we had like a good snifter of whiskey to get us through parts of it.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't recommend watching it regardless of the state of mind that you're in. But yeah, really, really bad. Not fun at all. Triple X : The Return of Xander Cage.
What's your take on the first Triple X, though?
Oh, Dixon loves it.
I haven't
Is that
seen that.
Stupid.
I'm pretty sure I saw it like on TV when I was like 14, and I think that's the only time I've seen it. I remember the concept seeming really stupid because it's like, wait a minute, Vin Diesel, who has to be like the least flexible man alive, is like a pro skateboarder. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There's never been a skateboarder that is that muscular.
That's like somebody saw Armageddon and was like, hey, wait a minute, we could try to put other people into similar situations.
Right.
Like, it's not just the drillers that go up to blow up the asteroid. We need extreme sports in espionage.
Yeah, we've got to train this skateboarder to like be James Bond because we need a skateboarder for some reason to do this. Just absolutely wild.
I would watch a movie where the entire U.S. Olympic team, like everybody in the U.S. Olympics, is recruited to pull off one espionage thing where it's like a Rube Goldberg's heist where they're all needed for like, you're going to have to run this
like
baton past the laser walls.
Yeah.
You're going to take this luge. You've always like that kind of shit.
Like Gymkhana.
Like, it's like Gymkhana. Like that'd be amazing.
Yeah. It just happens to be a snowmobile race that has to
But instead
occur.
they're like, hey, this is just, you have guns like any other agent, but also occasionally you like motorcycle or like ski. Fuck it.
Yeah. I didn't see the Ice Cube one, Triple X State of the Union, I believe is the name of that one. I never saw that one. But Ice Cube does show up in Triple X : The Return of Xander Cage.
That's right.
So you got 6 X's, I guess, at that point.
It's such a reveal.
But yeah, anyway, it sucks. Don't watch it. Let's move into a better category. Best movie of 2024. John, what was the best 2024 movie that you watched?
I think I'm going to have to go with Kinds of Kindness as my best of 2024.
Nice.
It just was something that the rest of the year I kept thinking about it. It led to a really interesting episode with you, Dixon, where we kind of just like talked through and tried to peel it back. And I'm pretty sure it's kind of that similar wavelength for me that like Beau is Afraid was, where I'm just like, oh, this is just something I'll continue to come back to and want to rewatch. And it's just so darkly funny too, that it's hard to pass it up as something that could make the, best of 2024 for me. Looked over the list of everything else and I was kind of like, there's like other, like Furiosa was good, but it's not like my best. And I really did love The Substance, but I don't think that I can rewatch The Substance as much as I could do like Kinds of Kindness.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That makes sense. That was also my favorite movie of 2024. So let me do my little list and then we'll talk more about Kinds of Kindness. But I did a top 10.
Yep.
I only watched 77 new movies this year, which is like a record low for me. But like, again, I just like Ryan, you
gotta
mentioned
pump those numbers
that,
up.
like, I know.
Rookie numbers.
Yeah.
But Ryan, you're like, it seemed like a bad movie year this year. There was just like not as much stuff that I was interested in seeing this year. And so I ended up going back more to old movies and like not like seeking out new stuff as much. There also is some stuff that was like a 2024 release that hasn't come out in Austin yet that's gotten really good reviews that I just like, can't see yet. And so it seems like there's more of those than usual this year. But my top 10 was Thelma, 9, We Live in Time, 8, Fancy Dance, 7, Here, not the Robert Zemeckis movie, a different movie, a Belgian film called Here. 6, Made in England, the films of Powell and Pressburger. 5, Dune, Part 2. 4, His Three Daughters. 3, Kneecap. 2, Hundreds of Beavers. And 1, Kinds of Kindness. So, yeah, I mean, like Kinds of Kindness, I thought was just absolutely incredible. Like, really enjoyed our conversation about it, John. And, just like an anthology film of 3 stories that have the same cast, in different roles in each of the 3 stories. And it's just like a devastating analysis of the desperate human need to be told what to do. And it's just like such a hilarious and dark like experience watching it, where each story is like somebody in an abusive relationship who just like craves being in that abusive relationship, whether it's like being in a cult or like being like working at a big corporation, or like being in a relationship, like a marriage. There's just like different ways of kind of analyzing how fucked up humanity is, and how it's like, you either want to enforce your dominance over other people, or you want to be dominated by somebody else. And that seems to be Lanthimos' like, idea of what the human race is. And maybe he's right, but it's super fucked up. But it was a really interesting film, and made me think a lot about myself and dynamics in my life. And but yeah, super fascinating. And Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone are so fucking good in that movie.
Just so fucking hilarious. But yeah, nice.
Ryan, have you seen Kinds of Kindness?
No, I haven't. I kind of missed out on most of the, I think, what are probably short lists for best movies. Looking back over the year as well, there were a lot of sequels or remakes that I don't think met people's expectations. I think that also kind of makes it a rough year for the big movie studios. There are things that I definitely want to catch up on. But yeah, kind of similarly, there just wasn't that much. I didn't go to the movie theater as often this year either, compared to the, finally kind of getting back up to going relatively regularly. This was a weak year for that. For me, the best is going to be Look Back. Whether it qualifies as a feature-length movie or not is a question.
I think it technically does.
I think it technically does, and I know that they got it into the theater by adding like some interviews at the end to just get the runtime over. But yeah, I think it does technically qualify. That's my best animated, obviously, as well for this year. I think that it's a movie that I just kind of walked away from thinking about how I felt about it. I went back, I rewatched it. I got the manga that it's based on and read that. Got a little bit of a different take from that, reading that. Like, it's something I just came back to a bunch. The animation, like the kind of interesting things they did with the background to make it look sketched, more back towards the old 2D way, but then just some interesting angles and interesting takes, and the way it was animated also, put it up there for me.
Nice.
Yeah, I still haven't checked it out, but I do want. It's on my list. So.
Yeah, they showed it at AFS, and I wasn't able to get over and see it when it was out. So yeah, I'll definitely be on the lookout for it.
Now it's on Prime Video. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Instead of supporting my local independent movie theater, I can now support Amazon.
You already paid for the Reagan movie.
I rented that through Apple. Slightly smaller evil empire than Amazon.
I think that Wicked is going to be the thing that ends up winning the Academy Award.
Really?
I could see that.
I have not seen Wicked.
I could see it.
In that, no, I don't. I'm not going to. And I don't think it is good, but I do think that
it's
everyone
half
needs
of a movie. It can't be that good on its own.
Right? Yeah, it's half the movie, and it's still 3.5 fucking hours. I think everyone needs to recoup their money from advertising, and I think that the way the system works, that's what's going to happen on the inside. Is really this like, look, so I don't know if I mentioned when we went to see Moana 2 that we didn't see any fucking trailers. We just saw ads for Wicked over and over and again.
Nice.
But they were like AT&T and Wicked, Xfinity and Wicked, Coca-Cola and Wicked, Google
shit.
And Wicked, like just over and over and over again. And just ridiculous.
A local theater here in town, Violet Crown, was showing The Wizard of Oz, and they advertised it as the sequel to Wicked.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, you may be right on that. It's definitely like, one of the big studio films at the end of the year that actually did well. And like the Oscars seem to be trying to reward commercial success more than usual over the past few years. So it's definitely possible that that's where we're headed. And if it wins, I'll have to watch it. And I don't want to do that. Anyway, John, what was your worst movie of 2024?
It was Joker, Folie à Deux.
I actually didn't get around to that. I wanted to watch the train wreck because I hated the first one so much, but I
really didn't need to.
Didn't end up doing it.
It's honestly, you're better off for not.
My finger hovered over the button on the airplane this last week.
Almost pushed it. No, I mean, I went and saw this. It was one of those things where I feel like the studio decided that, Todd Phillips, do whatever you want to fucking do. Like, do you want to piss off all the people who liked Joker the first time? Go ahead. But just like put musical shit in it so that we can advertise it has musical moments and we can get the musical crowd to come and see a Joker movie. And I feel like that was like their whole end. And so when I watched that movie, it was like two movies in one. It was a bunch of non sequitur montage, like musical segments that don't fucking matter. And then it was the plot of Joker 2 that hates its audience. And so, and it's so fucking boring and spends so much time focused on like, it really did feel like Todd Phillips was trying to expunge any and all good takeaways that could have been had in the first Joker movie. Like if anybody liked anything about it, he was like, I need a checklist of all those things that I can shit on. And I'm just going to fucking turn to the camera and have Joaquin Phoenix be like, remember this? That fucking sucks. So
he didn't shit on Martin Scorsese, did he?
No, he didn't shit on Martin Scorsese. He just regretted. I guess Todd Phillips made his own Taxi Driver in an era where Taxi Driver would have taken off for the wrong reasons. And then he got mad and tried to make an anti-Taxi Driver follow-up where Travis Bickle is a miserable worm that, like, I don't know, you just hate the entire movie, never tries to win you over again. You've already had like all of the fucking mystique taken away. So yeah, it was pretty bad. It was just boring was really the worst part of it. It's like if a director wants to burn stuff down, I've talked about how I like the fourth Matrix movie because it is like, just fuck it. We're just going to do this. And it's, to me, it's interesting at least. This just felt like it was infused with hatred.
Toward the audience
yes.
or toward himself?
Toward everything. It was like a misanthropic, I guess, in the truest sense of the word for me. So,
is Joaquin Phoenix bad in it?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, Steve Coogan shows up.
I love Steve Coogan,
and he doesn't do anything, and they don't do any funny shit with him, and they put him in a situation where he could totally do funny shit, and he just doesn't. So
well, that's upsetting.
Misuse. The best part of the movie was when Joaquin Phoenix does a Southern lawyer for like 3 seconds, and that's like it. It's a real bummer.
Wow. Does he say, I do declare?
He does.
Oh,
he does.
Good. I may just need to find that on YouTube.
Yeah, that's all you need. So, yeah.
All right. Ryan, what was your worst 2024 movie?
There's a couple bad ones I want to catch up with, Joker being one of them, but the worst of what I watched was Madam Web.
Okay.
I mean, I think I knew that going into it. It was in that, like, not as bad as I thought it would be, but not good enough or good bad enough to really be worth it. If I had to choose between it and Morbius to watch, I would watch Madam Web again. Morbius was just so fucking boring to me.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But it definitely deserves all the hate that it gets. It just didn't come off well at all. It felt like a movie that everyone, like, no one wanted to be in. Like, the actors didn't want to be in it. Like, no one wanted to work on it. They put it out like a fucking wet fart and then we're just done and moved on.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wasn't the like Sony exec recently declaring that Madam Web is actually good? If you look at like the user engagement on Netflix, she was like, no, like a lot of people watched it.
Therefore it's good.
Therefore it's good.
That makes it good, right?
Wow.
Amazing.
I like Dakota Johnson a lot, and I remember her doing the press rounds for this, just like shitting on the movie.
Yeah.
Like she just clearly did not want anything to do with it and would not say one good thing about it while on the press tour. It's like, this is incredible. Just like an actor just like giving the studio the middle finger, like refusing to actually, she's like, I'll show up where you tell me to show up, but I'm not going to tell people to go see this fucking movie.
So good.
That's funny. Okay, I have a bottom 10 for the worst movies of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Number 10, Y2K. Number 9, Horizon, an American Saga - Chapter 1. I will not be watching Chapter 2 if that does ever come out.
He says that, but...
8, Strange Darling. Sorry, John. 7, Rumors. 6, Mufasa, The Lion King. 5, Mean Girls. 4, The Primevals. 3, Here, the Robert Zemeckis Here. 2, Reagan.
Yeah.
And I have a worse movie than Reagan. My number 1 worst movie of 2024 is War Game. This is a documentary about the U.S. government being very concerned about January 6th. And afterward, they're like, we have some data that there are people in the U.S. military who are sympathetic to the January 6th rioters. And so, like, we're concerned that if this happens again, some of the military might try to help them. And, like, are we sufficiently, like, okay to be able to deal with something like that? And so they stage this elaborate war game where they have some dipshit governor playing the president and like a bunch of other people playing like his advisors and the heads of different departments and all this shit. They have people playing the agitators and stuff like that. And they're just sitting in this fake war room trying to figure out what to do as fake information comes through about like insurrectionists and people in the military, like trying to help them out. And it's just like it's just like the most self-important piece of shit. And like the filmmakers are like all there for it. Like they're just like covering this thing as if it's this wonderful, important thing that we need to be doing. And like in theory, doing a war game like that to try to figure out, hey, what would happen in this situation? Probably a good use of resources.
Yeah.
But they basically just like stare at the camera very seriously and talk about the importance of democracy, and they don't really actually do anything. Like they keep getting more fake information in about how like, oh, the people are enclosing on the Capitol. Oh, they're inside. And like the president's just like, and his advisors are like, you have to make a decision, sir. And he's just like, And like the big decision that he has to make is whether to sick the military on the insurrectionists and on American civilians. And like, if he did do that, if it would even work, because are there so many in the military that would be sympathetic to the rioters' cause that like they wouldn't actually be able to stop it with the U.S. military. And they're going back and forth through this thing. And this whole movie is hinging on, sir, are you going to call the military on the civilians? And he's got all these dipshit advisors saying, sir, you have to do this. And he's like, this is a horrible idea. Why would I sick the U.S. military on American civilians? That's unprecedented. Like, that changes what we are as a country. They're like, sir, you have to do it. Otherwise, they're going to take over the Capitol and overthrow the government, blah, blah, blah. And eventually, he just, like, is building up to this decision. Are you going to do it? Are you not going to do it? And they have this ticking clock in the background. And eventually, he just decides, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to sick the military on the American people. And then they're just like, good decision, sir. The insurrectionists have left. We have won now. And like, what the fuck? Like, this whole thing is just leading to this one decision. There are no other decisions that are made, no
so
other
dumb.
precautions that are undertaken. And he's just like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to have the military shoot civilians in the streets. And they're just like, you are a wonderful leader. This is a great day for America. And, you know, oh yes, all the bad people have left now. We've arrested them and they're fine. And then they're doing like these fake tweets the whole time. Like, oh, how should we respond to this? They're like tweeting different shit. And then at the end, they have a self-congratulatory press conference for no one. I was like, what are you doing? Who is this press conference for? There aren't like fake American people watching this except me. Like, what the hell is going on here?
That sounds like an amazing satire.
It would be such a good satire if the filmmakers understood how bullshit this all was, but they're just they're there for everything. Like, clearly think this is super important and that this is a big deal and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like just straight up government propaganda. This is one of the worst movies I have ever seen. It's just shockingly stupid to think that like the U.S. government would be prepared for something like that. Like, Jesus Christ, if 10% of the military split off and attacked the Capitol, you think we would be okay to just like, oh yeah, it's fine. Like we dealt with it. We're all cool now. Like, holy shit. It's just absolutely wild that we could think that we could survive that. And the fact that we think we could survive it by just like staring at it hard enough and talking about the tenets of democracy for long enough, and then it'll just go away and everything will be fine. You just have to stand there like a powerful man in charge, and then the people will just do what you want. Like, honestly, reminded me a lot in that vein of Reagan, the second worst movie that I saw this year, and we'll get more into that later. But Jesus Christ, like War Game is just the most unself-aware piece of shit that I have ever seen. Like, absolutely wild.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a better version of it where it's a mockumentary and it follows a core character who's on the insurrectionist side, whose family has been like in a legacy of playing insurrectionist in these war games. And they're all like, okay, we're going to storm the Capitol with like paintball guns or some shit. And it's following him. He's just like, yeah, like I've been training for this. Like I could do it. Like I could overthrow the government. Like have him be the MVP. Oh man, that's fucking wild.
They do show they have people in the military that are like they're like running the insurrectionist group, and they're like, running it through social media, and they're like, oh yeah, we have this Twitter account. We're directing all the people to do these things, and oh no, they found our Twitter account and they shut us down. We have to start a new Twitter account now and get new followers. So like, do blah blah. Oh my God, it's just so dumb. It's just so fucking stupid.
Oh man, what a fucking movie! You've sold me on it.
Yeah, John is gonna go. John's gonna just like leave for a minute and go watch the movie and come back.
Yeah, Dixon, you know what we should do? It would be really fucking fun to do is if we watch that movie and we record a commentary track as if we're the documentarian crew and we do it up our own ass enough that it's a good satire.
That could actually work. Yeah.
Oh my God. I like this idea.
Oh man. In this scene, we're really trying to portray the importance of democracy in our society.
Yeah. You say sticks and stones. That's what you say. They turn away.
Oh my God. Yeah. Don't watch War Game. All right. So now we are going to split off into separate individual categories and talk about some notable things during the year that we each watched. John, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So the last time that we did this, I brought like my first movie and last movie of 2024. I'll just do, I've switched these to be, since now limited series are on Letterboxd and all that stuff. First Letterboxd log and last of 2024. Which my first was Blue Eyes Samurai, which I still highly recommend folks check out. I believe there's going to be, at this point now, a season 2, maybe.
All right.
But when it came out, it was kind of like, well, we're just going to throw this on Netflix and put it in Letterboxd. So, okay. The animation in that is gorgeous. The story is really gripping. It's a good revenge tale. It's also just like the coolest. It's got like a Rule of Cool sort of level of violence in it, where all the fights are just like really stylized, hyper gory, but not overly grotesque. They're just like really quick, clean, kind of Kurosawa style slices. So I really fucking loved it, and I still think about it and I'm like, when are they going to release the second part? But yeah, that's the first that I logged, and the last thing I logged was Wicked. 2024. I'm the one who saw it.
No.
And
now I am defying gravity. Now it was I am become gravity, destroyer of worlds. I really liked Wicked. I'm not a big musical guy. None of us, I think, on the podcast are.
Except Singing in the Rain.
Yeah, except Singing in the Rain, like those classical ones. There were some songs that I didn't like, some that I was totally fine with. I enjoyed the sound of them, but I felt like the creativity and the overall cinematography, the work. I'll say the one bad thing about the cinematography is they filmed in like natural lighting, and at times they just let the sun fucking wash out the lens with like a bunch of backlighting that totally kind of ruined some shots.
Oh,
but this movie like went for broke. The set designer was the same guy who worked on Dunkirk. And he convinced the studio to plant 9 million flowers, Ryan, for a single scene. And the studio was like, they're poppies, I think.
Poppies.
The scene from Wizard of Oz where they all get drugged and fall
There's
asleep.
kind of that. I think they're supposed to be poppies. I don't remember what they are really. But the studio was like, can you guarantee they'll bloom by like the next season? And he's like, sure.
Put my best men on it.
They like, at every turn, the movie just seems like it was trying to see how much money they could get away with sinking into the production, because they have like the Wizard of Oz's head is a gigantic puppet that like 12 people operate.
That's cool.
They have like they had a map that was supposed to just be a painting that they made into a 3D like model that when you look at it from a certain angle is painting like, and so it just like gets depth the moment that characters start stepping into it, which was pretty cool. And then they have like this big library with like moving bookcases that rotate in a circle, and a bunch of the cast dances through that. And it just was like, at every point I was kind of visually dazzled by what they could do. Even when they have musical numbers done in a single room, they find a way to put the camera on the ceiling, put the camera in a corner, put the camera somewhere else, and have the characters dance around or on or in and out of different things that you're like, this is just too creative. It's not like Lin-Manuel's like 20 people in the streets kind of dancing. It's, I don't know, each scene kind of feels the right amount of intimate. But yeah, that was I went from going into it kind of grumbling to coming out of it being like, okay, I kind of want to see what part 2 looks like.
I am interested, like that you mentioned the natural lighting. The other thing, the director choice to have the music be actually recorded as they sang it, not post-recorded and not stuff put over it.
Nice.
So there's actually like the sound as they're dancing is there, or if they brush against something or whatever, like that's also included within it.
Yeah.
So really trying to make the whole thing feel real, right? Like so much of it was going towards that, trying to make it feel real, which I think is interesting. Ella asked like if she could read the book, and I was like, no, not from what I've heard. And she asked Darla to read it. So Darla started listening to the audiobook and was like, you gotta skip chapter 1. And then a little bit later, she was like, there's a couple chapters later you have to skip. And then she's like, yeah, you can't read it. And then I asked her on the plane, she was listening to another audiobook, and I was like, are you still listening to that? She's like, no, I fucking gave up. And she's like, the musical is like 30 seconds of the book that they expanded into a musical, and the rest of the book is completely not in
like
there.
High politics and super dark.
And apparently like a ton of sex.
Okay. Sick.
Sex.
Witch on witch action.
Rape, like weird rape, like all kind. Yeah. Like,
how many munchkins are involved in the sex?
Apparently the thing in chapter 1 that she had to skip was there was a munchkin that has a dick also on his back and had sex with a mom and daughter at the same time.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was like, she was like, it wasn't even related to the story. She was like, it was just a story. It was just something they told. Like, I don't even know why. And the author himself said he put that in there a la Sorcerer to be like, oh, I'll get you out. If you're not in for this, you shouldn't be in for the rest of the book.
Once upon a time in a land far, far away, there was a little man with a dick on his front and a dick on his back. And he fucked and he fucked until he couldn't fuck anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, the movie was not that dark. The movie didn't have any sex scenes in it. So there was
disappointing.
That. I do like a lot of the lore that the musical seems to have about the Munchkins being assholes and Glinda the Good Witch being a total bitch and like all this other stuff that I'm just like, yeah, sure, I'm in for this. This seems like cool from a sure, let's build on what was just a fairy tale and make it a little more grimy and gritty. But yeah, I liked it. So
all right, cool. Ryan, what do you have for us?
I think previously I've kind of talked about the movies I've rewatched, because for me that's a pretty, like, there's movies as good by the cinematography, the sound, the direct, like all of it together. And then there's those movies that are your favorite movie because you just enjoy them. you know, whether they're necessarily like expertly crafted or not. And for me, anything I go back and like rewatch of my own volition kind of says something, right? Like kind of fighting for my time that I go back and get it. I mentioned Look Back. That was something I watched twice and really appreciated.
Looked back to it.
Yeah, I looked back on it. I did watch Dungeons and Dragons again.
Yeah,
Again.
Still
half of your
enjoyed
family forgot about it.
Yeah, they forgot about it, so I like forcing them to go back and rewatch it again. And I still enjoyed it. Like that movie, that is a good example of not necessarily a well-crafted movie per se, but like fun, right? And I had fun with it. And then technically, I watched The Holdovers at early January of 2024. And was like, oh, this is great. Coming around to Christmas again, it was already something I was thinking about. And we did have a chance to visited John and have my family watch it. It was a bit of a Stand By Me thing where I was like, I remember some inappropriate things, but I don't remember that many inappropriate things. But my family's kind of already like, it's over. The dam broke.
I thought that was the funniest part was the silent like build up to the movie starting where it just had a gigantic rated R on the screen. And up until then I'd been convinced it was like PG-13 at worst.
And really it's just like for cussing, right? Honestly, like the kids cuss.
And Paul Giamatti's eyes.
Yeah.
The parental guidance isn't enough for this.
No.
My family did really enjoy it. Like they all walked away really enjoying it. And I do feel like it's for me, a new kind of Christmas tradition movie to go back to. And seeing it again, I actually think I even appreciated it more. Like it's growing even more on me.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. All right. So I usually do best male performance and best female performance, but it's just Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone from Kinds of Kindness. So I'm not going to relitigate that. It's very good. You should see it. I'm going to skip to my most underrated 2024 film, and that is Kneecap, which I talked about on the podcast before and a recommend or refute episode, but just like a really fucking fun movie and a really interesting subject matter. So it's two guys in Ireland, in Belfast, who speak both Gaelic and English, and a lot of the native Irish speakers are kind of dying out. There's not a lot of people who speak Gaelic anymore, and they really want to kind of take Irish culture back, and they start a rap group where they're rapping in Gaelic and in English and kind of start this revolutionary movement, kind of this anti-colonial, get the Brits the fuck out of our country type of thing. And it's a really interesting film. It's so much fun to watch. The music is incredible. I've been listening to their music a lot since I watched the movie. But it's also just like a really interesting movie about colonialism and, cultures that are suppressed by colonial powers. There's a quote in the movie about how there's like an indigenous language dies like once every 2 weeks or something like that across the world. And like, the fight to kind of keep indigenous culture to be separate things from their, colonial powers. And it's a very like just such a fun watch. And like they really care about kind of bringing Catholics and Protestants together in Ireland. They've done a lot of like donations to both Catholic and Protestant groups in Ireland to kind of try to help, kind of bring the Irish together, stop fighting themselves, and start like pushing back against colonial overrule. So really enjoyed Kneecap. Would definitely recommend anybody to check it out.
Yeah, I've gotten so many other recommendations for it from other people, so it's building on my list of things to see.
Nice.
It's on my very short list. It was on the airplane flight, and I really thought about watching it. In my defense, I didn't watch bad movies instead. I watched a good and good-ish movie. So
what did you watch instead?
I'll get to that. They were animated. It wasn't Craven, and it wasn't Joker.
It wasn't Venom.
Something in the middle that was more forgettable than either extreme. Cool. All right, John, what is your next topic for us?
Well, since this has been the year that I've like really gone through a 3D renaissance, trying to just explore and watch a shit ton of 3D movies, I figured
Triple X: The Return of Xander Cage.
Yeah. There's so many others that I've seen at this point that I feel like I can provide a recommendation of if you're looking to get into 3D or if your TV has some remnant 3D feature, what's a movie that you should check out that has the best 3D.
Coming at you.
Coming at you definitely had a lot of it. And it's no surprise that it would be big studio movies that have the best 3D. It's kind of hard to find a smaller or a cheaper 3D made film. But just to kind of rattle off a few that I've watched this year, we've watched like The Talons of the Hawk or whatever the fuck that
Wings
Western,
of the Hawk.
Wings of the Hawk.
Yeah.
We watched that old like Western in 3D. Not great. Both in movie and in 3D. It was kind of like a waste. But a lot of brown face too. Oofs.
Yeah.
And 3D doesn't, it comes at you a little bit harder with the racism, casual racism. I watched, Dixon got me a 3D Nudie Cuties Blu-ray, which I watched one movie on there, and it was exactly like that Ed Wood movie, Take It Out and Trade, but there was no sex. And it was a guy who was like, I'm a virgin and I need to learn how to be with women. Goo. And he was like Charlie Chaplining his way through perversions. Also not good. But the best 3D was Titanic 3D. James Cameron, despite a movie not being made in 3D.
We watched Fury Road in 3D. And
Which is
Titanic was better?
Which is my other recommendation. Fury Road in 3D is really good, and you get really amped for it. But in terms of the execution of 3D, I think James Cameron has probably the tightest grip on how to make a movie good in 3D. And a movie, let alone that wasn't shot in it. Like, I know they did a big restoration and re-released Titanic in 3D in theaters, but it's one of those things where like any movie could be doing that and you just be like, it's fucking cash in to make it part of the trend.
Right.
But I watched it with my friend who has loved Titanic for forever, went and saw 3D with me in theaters. And even then watching it at our house, he was like, I don't remember this being as good as it was, like the 3D being as good as it was here. And that's like pretty hard to accomplish in a home theater setup because I feel like 3D is calibrated differently. So yeah, very much that. And then if you want to watch Mad Max in 3D, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I was glad that we got to do that.
Have you revisited Hugo since your recent 3D kick?
No, I have not. And I got that restoration that they did. Like they did a 4K remaster and like have a 3D copy on there that I have not watched yet, but I do want to. I just know that one's already one that I'm like, this is good.
Yeah,
I know it's good. The 3D from what I remember last time was, I think when I was watching it was digital and it was not done super well in the stream, which seems like a weird stack doing a 3D movie over the internet. But yeah, maybe on a disc it'll be better. I don't know. Cool. So that was mine. Yeah, best 3D for anybody out there looking to get into the dead tech. There you go.
All right. Ryan, what's your next topic?
Yeah, I think I've highlighted in the past, in particular, kid movies I watched with the family, with the kids. And interestingly, I looking back at it this year, I'm at this point where we're not really watching kid movies as much. Like they've just grown up enough, I guess. Because over the podcast, I mentioned watching like Stand By Me. Like I just said, we watched The Holdovers. Like we're watching decent, quote unquote, real movies. That also means we watched Madam Web and like all the Avengers movies as well. So the good and the bad, but those are not kid movies. Like we've just kind of moved past that. I will highlight, we watched The Good Place, the television series, first season of it all together as a family. And fucking, wow, I love that show. This, the second time watching it, I'm like, I think that first season is just excellent television, excellent comedy writing. As for the bad, we did watch Furry Vengeance.
Oh, that's right. I remember you talking
I
about
mentioned that, and I had forgotten about that until I was going back through what I watched, and then I instantly was like, oh God, revulsion hit me remembering that. So that's definitely the highlight of the worst thing I watched with my family.
Oh, man. That's
worse than Madam Web.
I'm glad you're finally getting to crawl out of that hole of terrible movies like Yes Day. And into
Family
more
Switch.
Refined cinema. Very nice. Congratulations, Ryan.
Cool. All right. Well, my next category is the most overrated 2024 film.
Hit us with it.
I feel like usually every year there's a movie that is just absolutely terrible that is getting a bunch of praise. And I don't think there's actually, from what I've seen, that movie this year, but there's a couple that I will highlight. One, Mufasa: The Lion King. It does have a overall positive review on Metacritic. It's like 56. It's bad. I'm sorry, Barry Jenkins. I don't know what you're doing. It's a bad movie. It's like, Mufasa is an orphaned lion cub who gets raised by a random other pride of lions and ends up his orphaned brother ends up becoming Scar. And there's some evil albino lions run by Mads Mikkelsen. And that's by far the best part of the movie is Mads Mikkelsen being an evil albino lion. But it's just like the whole thing is just very pointless. Like, why does this exist? This is really stupid. At the end of the movie, Mufasa beats everybody and wins. Also Pride Rock, the thing that with the
where they hold the baby
lift
up.
The baby up. That was created in Mufasa by they were just fighting, and I don't know if lightning struck or something, but the rock falls off the cliff face and lands down. It's just
it's a symbol of the king.
It's really stupid. But at the end of the movie, Mufasa has won, and all the animals are just bowing down to him, just kinds of kindness, desperately needing someone to tell them what to do. And he's like, "There will be no more kings. We're not doing kings anymore. Except me, I'll be your king. I'll be the last fucking king, I swear.
Promise I'll hand it all back to you."
Yeah. It's so stupid. It's every movie about a noble king that wants to give it back to the people, like Gladiator, is just so fucking
the
stupid.
frost, sometimes it makes the claws stick.
So that was very dumb. And then this movie isn't horrible, but it's just getting a lot of award buzz and stuff is A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan movie. Chalamet does a pretty good job in it, but it's directed by James Mangold, who did Walk the Line, and the fact that man can make a music biopic anymore after Walk Hard came out is just shocking to me that anyone allows him to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they make money, I guess.
I think I sent you a trailer where I had just overdubbed.
You did.
Like a Walk Hard song.
That was fucking hilarious. But yeah, I mean, it was just not good. I don't know, Bob Dylan is notoriously an enigmatic asshole, right? Who doesn't want you to know anything about him. His name isn't real. It's unclear where he came from or why he is what he is. And he never wants to talk about himself. And for a character like that to make an origin story biopic about him, I was what the fuck are we doing? It's so weird. It's it's from kind of him starting to come on the scene until the concert where he first goes electric, and all the folk music people are super pissed at him because he decides to use an electric guitar. It's amazing that was a serious thing at the time. But it's just there's not really any sort of arc to it. It just kind of ends. And it's Bob Dylan is just a dick the whole movie. There's no really trying to explore who this man really is or why he's doing what he's doing. For somebody who has written so many profound songs about the time period that he was in, talking about civil rights and anti-war and all these things, there's no effort to try to understand where those lyrics are coming from, what type of views that he actually has that led to those. And I was just I don't really know what the point of any of this was, other than that Timothy Chalamet really wanted to play Bob Dylan. So yeah, I don't know, just not really worth seeing.
Yeah, for a moment there, I thought you were talking about the Reagan movie, the way you were describing. Nobody knows why he's doing it or what he's doing it for. It's a lot of... yeah, I saw that trailer and I just couldn't stop laughing. Anytime that I see the Complete Unknown trailer in theaters, I just couldn't stop laughing at how fucking stupid a lot of musical biopics have become.
Yeah.
Say what you will about the Pharrell movie that was done in a Lego style, but at least they were just fuck it. Let's just put Legos in this movie. Do something different.
See that one.
Did you see A Better Man? Do you have intention to see that? It's the Robbie Williams, not Robin Williams, the Robbie Williams story. It's the most boring biopic. It's so boring they decided to replace Robbie Williams with an ape, a CG ape. So he's an ape man who sings all of his songs. And then when they flash back to him as a child, he's a child ape. And
what the fuck?
I don't even
know who this is.
Bad.
Robbie Williams, is he a musician?
He's a musician. I didn't know who he was either until I saw that trailer. And I was somebody realized, and it's terrible CG too. Somebody realized the moment that they finished the edit, they were this is the most boring fucking biopic I've ever seen.
If we animate it, maybe kids will show up and think it's a kids movie.
Everybody else is a real person, and then Robbie Williams is just an ape.
What the hell? Oh my god.
You said that almost like Clint Eastwood finding out that this was a movie. It was amazing. Like, what the fuck is this? Oh god. Yeah. So, Complete Unknown sounds overrated.
Wow. Yeah, A Complete Unknown is not good. Yeah. All right, John, what's your next category?
My next category is recommend or refute follow-throughs. And I had a hard time remembering what we went over and what was like a follow-through that I actually tried to do. But from what I have, I just kind of expand this to the podcast follow-throughs in general. I finished Hot Frosty, Ryan. Are you happy?
Okay, yes.
You finished on Hot Frosty?
I finished on Hot Frosty. I just wanted to see, because Ryan didn't do a great job explaining how Hot Frosty dies. He just said he just dies.
It's hard to explain.
And then, yeah. I was like, I need to see this. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh, fuck, Ryan did do an okay job explaining
Hot Frosty went back to his home planet.
Hot Frosty, you look like you have something to say. Yes, I certainly do. I watched Once Within a Time, which Dixon had recommended, and it was another, that's Godfrey
Reggio,
yeah. And you'd been talking about it, and I was like, I got to see this. And then when I watched it, I was like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, I loved it. It was great. Godfrey Reggio, who's done Koyaanisqatsi.
Koyaanisqatsi.
Just a great, another, like a contemporary vision he's had of just kind of like talking about the world and technology, and it's like an hour long. It was really a wild trip to just behold.
Yeah.
I was glad I followed up with that. And then another one that I won't talk about now, but will mention later. I'll just kind of tease that in my disappointment category. I'll bring that up later, but
okay.
that's mine. So yeah, I followed up on 2. As far as I remember, I've watched a lot of movies this year, so I don't know if I made good on other promises.
Probably not.
But probably not. It's my guess. I guess I finished Arcane, which I told Ryan I would do eventually, and then we did it for an episode, and then I did season 2.
Oh, you did?
So, yeah,
How was season 2?
Season 2 was really good.
It was really good.
Season 2 actually kind of addressed a lot of the gripes that we had during our episode.
Oddly,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which was weird. We like hit every mark. We were like, oh, I wish this would happen. And then it fucking kind of did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the like tease of that is that I think one of your big complaints was the Arcane, like it's titled that, but what the fuck is the magic and have anything to do with it? Yeah, that's like the point of the second season. Like it gets into that a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, that was good. It was a good time.
All right. Ryan, what's your next category?
I'll cover the best animated movies that I watched, and then the ones that I still need to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say for me, number 5 was Spy X Family Code White. That I went and saw that in the theater, had a good time. It really does fit in and play well with the Spy X Family. It's just a fun franchise. Number 4, this is one of the things I picked to watch on the airplane. Make of it what you will. Transformers 1.
Okay.
All right.
I actually really enjoyed it. I think I am a Transformers sucker, not for the Michael Bay things, not enough that I love the Michael Bay things. I actually hated the first Transformers when it came out, and then everything subsequent to that. Transformers 1 brings it back to what I mean, I think the franchise is. Like, this isn't for adults. It's not going to be a grand, amazing thing. Like, it is mostly for kids and families. It's interesting to get a Transformers story that's back on Cybertron and not them in the human world. But just overall, like, it was fun. The characters are fun. They grew. It was an interesting kind of story the way it went. It gave, like, it built its world as it went. I rather enjoyed it.
Wait, how can they exist outside of the human world when they transform into human cars?
But they need Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. That has
how
always...
would they have any concept for human cars?
These questions have always
they don't
existed.
have a reference there to humanity.
They sort of transform into like science fiction-y versions of those things that sort of look like the thing on the human world, but kind of their own thing. So it's like Starscream is supposed to be, right, like a jet, just a straight up military jet. Well, he's more of like a sci-fi spaceship kind of thing. Like it's like the concept is there. Yeah.
What about the 18-wheeler?
He's like a
18 hover
weird.
wheeler.
Yeah, he's a vehicle, and he's not a whole 18-wheeler. He doesn't have his trailer. He's just the cab.
Yeah, he's
but,
like the cab.
They never
often
explain
like the cab of an 18-wheeler.
They never explain where the
kinda.
trailer comes from Also,
Yeah, it
when
just
Optimus
fucking
Prime-
flies in the
shows
old
up.
cartoon. Yeah, it just comes out of nowhere. Megatron's like a tank, but it's a weird triangular tank. Like everything is, but it is a weird thing that the show never addressed in the first place when it was just fucking making shit up.
Nor did they care to.
Yeah, that they came from Cybertron and that they always could transform, but like why they transformed into things vaguely human. At least
Vaguely.
yeah. Well, on Cybertron,
It's
it was
just a
vaguely. On Earth,
commercial
it was
for a
straight up.
Chevy Camaro.
Yeah, that's where Beast Wars, not the Beast Wars movie, the Beast Wars the cartoon, I think did a good job of being like, oh well, they're on this planet, so they copy animals instead of copying cars and planes. Like that made a lot of sense, but they've dropped that and gone just back to like,
Just
he
fuck
kind of
it.
was always sort of an 18-wheeler. Live with it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Number 3 for me was Wild Robot, which I feel like is going to be everyone's top movie. I talked about it on the podcast too, so I won't go too far into that. But like, it was fine. Like, but it just wasn't the amazing like transcendent experience that people are claiming that it is. I think that Inside Out will make it to the nominations just because I kind of think this should be one of the years Disney misses out. I think they've only missed out twice on the Academy Animated Features before. I think this is a year they should miss out. I don't think Inside Out was worthy of it. I had fun and I enjoyed it, but I don't think it was worthy of that nomination. Wild Robot is, but I don't think it's the best thing.
Yeah.
Okay, now going back on our argument of like when it's a 2024 movie and when it's a 2023 movie, I watched Robot Dreams on the plane.
Yeah.
Same.
It was nominated in 2023, but it didn't come out in the States until 2024. So I don't really know when
I
the
don't know what that
Academy...
horseshit was about, but like
Yeah.
it was literally not released in the US in 2023, yet it was nominated for the Oscars, which is like, I thought against the rules, but
I don't understand. That's where I kind of have just given up. I guess with international, it just seems like it's arbitrary to me when they decided this or isn't what year it is. And then my number 1 is Look Back, which I mentioned before, but I'll talk about Robot Dreams a little bit. Honestly, if you took your family to Wild Robot and you're like, I'm blown away, I promise if you took your family to see Robot Dreams and you took your family to see Look Back, they're both appropriate movies that anyone can watch, and you and your kids will walk away like with questions and feelings and think about them for a long time in a way that you will not with Wild Robot. You will forget and move on with your life, and someone will bring up Wild Robot and you'll be like, oh yeah, that was a good movie. But if they bring back Look Back or Robot Dreams, you'll be like, oh, I remember exactly what happened in those movies, and it was interesting what they went through and how they addressed it in a way that anyone can watch. Robot Dreams has no dialogue. A dog builds a robot because he's lonely. Honestly, like that is the plot. But the way that they, like, the relationship grows, and then as things change, the robot gets rusted and is stuck on a beach, and it's a long time before the character is able to come back together. They go through all these other relationships and other things, and it really is an interesting, like, you can sit there at the end of it and just be like, yeah, it is like that in life, where these relationships can come and go and still be important, but you be in a different place and maybe a different person now. And like, really, it gives you a lot to think about and stomach on. And my kids afterwards were like, I don't know how I feel about that after watching it. And they're like, they were like, it was sad at the end. And I'm like, yeah, it was bittersweet. Like, Look Back's that way too. Yeah, where you're like, maybe it is, but you can look for another lens and be like, but they are happy people at the end too. Like, it just gives you a lot that I think that's what I want animation to really do and challenge, and that there's such an opportunity. Like, Look Back does a lot in an hour that a lot of fucking movies don't do with 2 or 3.5 hours. And that anyone can go watch that.
Yeah, Robot Dreams was also my favorite animated movie of the year, and I really enjoyed it. There's also a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire in it, which is always great.
Oh yeah, they just use that September to remember to death, but it's good. They use it really well.
Yeah, they do. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. It's like it's this tragic thing, but it's like, you go down one path in life, and you always wonder what would have happened if you had gone a different way. And there's like kind of mourning the loss of who you might have been if you had gone down that other path and had that relationship that, maybe you didn't see all the way through, or taken that career path that you didn't. And it's like a movie about the choices we make and the regrets that we inevitably have because of the choices that we make. And it's like a lot more interesting and profound than the vast majority of animated films.
Yeah, totally.
I still haven't gone to see it, but I'm excited.
Yeah, you should definitely check it out. The need to see, the chances that I haven't gotten to see these yet. Flow, which I think will also be on that top of that list.
I haven't gotten to that either, and I've heard great things.
Yeah, it just was like one day that it was here, and I wasn't able to see it, and it's gone for the moment. So I'm waiting on that one. I'm really excited. The Colors Within, which was an anime that was released supposedly really good. It looks really, really good to me. I haven't had a chance to see Ultraman Rising, but I've heard pretty good things about that. And I think Memoir of a Snail is probably the thing that's going to wrap up.
Oh, I do want to see that.
Potentially beat Wild Robot if they're actually looking at like good movie and not trying to recoup their money or whatever with Wild Robot.
Yeah. Makes sense.
All right, my next category is the 2024 film that fucks the hardest with traditional American values. That movie is Lover of Men, The Untold History of Abraham Lincoln.
Lover of Men's colon.
Yeah, very aptly named. This is a documentary. It's a very standard, straightforward documentary. Like the structure of it isn't that interesting. It feels like something that you would like see on PBS or something, except that it's a bunch of historians being like, oh yeah, Abraham Lincoln was like super gay. Here's all the reasons why. like going through his life and talking about like all the men that he definitely had sexual relationships with. And like it's an interesting analysis of 19th century American culture too, because supposedly, as these historians tell it, the genders in cities were so segregated because there was such rules around not fraternizing with women outside of marriage and stuff, that like you would hang out, like all your free time was hanging out with other people of the same gender. And so supposedly there were a lot of extramarital relationships that were homosexual at the time, and it was apparently sex outside of marriage was viewed as a sin, but it wasn't like homosexual or heterosexual. It wasn't really viewed differently. And so it's like if you were having sex outside of marriage, it was bad, but it was like it was gay or straight, it didn't really matter. Mm-hmm. And they talk through Lincoln's life and these different people that he was like roommates with for a really long time, or like when he was president, he had like a security guard who like would sleep in his bedroom with him, and like they would find the security guard wearing Lincoln's robe around the house. And, different things like that, where it was just like I don't know, just like a really interesting look at Lincoln as a different person than you think of him as, this stern figure who is very serious about diplomacy and government, looking at his personal life in a very different way that I thought was really interesting. It was I enjoyed watching it. It was, from a filmmaking standpoint, not that interesting, but from a subject matter standpoint, very interesting. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend checking it out. It's a take on our favorite president that you have not heard before, probably.
Should they rename the title to make it more provocative and be like the first gay president?
Oh, that would be a good one. Yeah, I guess maybe that they don't know if there were other gay presidents.
Who knows?
Too, but, yeah.
That's why you put colon that we know of so far. That's pretty fascinating. Yeah, I could see that being one of those like, hey, the subject matter alone is interesting. We don't have to fucking do anything extra here.
Yeah.
Just let these historians talk about it.
And the nonchalance that they have about it is really funny to me. It's like not that they are like, unearthing this new information. It's like, oh yeah, everybody knows Lincoln was like super gay. And it's like they have like love letters between him and like people in his life and stuff. And it's like it's pretty. There's a lot of evidence there.
Convincing evidence.
Yeah.
Are you convinced that it's true? Or
I feel pretty convinced that it's true.
Okay.
I would think that they going through such an elaborate ruse to have all these historians that are like tenured professors on there and like, reading, love letters and stuff. I was like, if this is bullshit, it's a very elaborate ruse.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed pretty legit to me.
I'm just saying there isn't an Oliver Stone movie about it yet, so I don't know if I should believe it.
Good point. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Cool. John, what do you have next?
Oh, well, I want to ask as well.
Yeah,
has there been, did you see any like blowback online or like any pushback from people that are like, this movie fucking sucks? Lincoln is the most macho dude ever. Because I feel like people would get very confused or be very like apprehensive about speaking against it.
I feel like it's a movie that you only watch it if you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. If you're like, fuck that, Lincoln was the straightest guy that's ever lived, then you're not clicking on that movie to watch it. So I haven't seen very many like bad reviews of it. But I think just because those people didn't watch the movie that would write those reviews.
Gonna see like there's a 1-star rating for it that just says no.
Right.
Oh man. All right. So I've got 2024 honorable mentions next. So these are movies and shows that I've seen in 2024. Not specifically they came out. So I just wanted to note Civil War, which we've talked about at one point, just because I like Alex Garland's work and I thought Civil War was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I also watched like a recent interview with the editor of Civil War, and like they talked about including some of that inappropriate music and like needle drops and what they were trying to do. And I was like, this is still fascinating. I saw The TV Glow was another that I just watched.
I thought that movie was really interesting.
Is very, very interesting trans allegory that is all about like this kid who has seen a show that's like Goosebumps basically, or Are You Afraid of the Dark? And it has some self-awakening moment tied to that show and becomes obsessed with it, and is then in like later life trying to remember what the show was about and line up kind of the timeline with their own life and who they've become and how true to themselves they are. And I just thought it's a fascinating, I thought it was going to be a horror movie because just every poster kind of seems like eerie and creepy in a way. It's way more existentially dreadful and kind of dour, and this bitter, not even bittersweet, it's just bitter by the time that it ends, kind of depressing movie. So you have to be in a certain mindset, but it was fantastic. I really loved it.
I think also that movie is a really interesting exploration of like people that make TV shows their personality, and then like looking back on it and be like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I was just immature and that show wasn't very good, and like reassessing your life based on that, I think is super fascinating.
Yeah, there very much is like things resonate with you differently at different points in your life, and it's okay to get to that point and be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have based so much of my life on this.
Yeah,
but it is interesting exploration of how you latch in to media. Then the other movie that I wanted to mention was The Great Silence, which Dixon and I watched.
Yeah.
Which for the first like 3/4 of that movie, we were like, why the fuck is this movie like lauded as being as good as it is? And then when it got to that ending, it was like, oh yeah, this is fucking great. It's a Western from 1968. It's got Klaus Kinski, right, as the main villain of it. And it's kind of like building up this hero known as the Great Silence, who's going to come into this town and like fuck up Klaus Kinski, and it's all going to go his way. And then it just kind of builds to this subversion of a lot of the Western tropes. I know when it ended, the only thing that you didn't like, Dixon, was that they had a cop-out title crawl or like a fucking text crawl at the end that was like, and this is what happened on this day or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
When they could have just let it happen and then rolled the credits. But I remembered that movie. That experience was kind of wild to come out of it.
The ending was so powerful and so subversive. It's like the whole movie, I was like, this is fine. And then the ending hits, and I'm like, oh my God, this is really good. Like,
yeah.
It just like recontextualizes the whole film. It's fascinating.
Pretty fucking great. So those are my 3 movies for 2024. They're honorable mention. And the last one is a limited series called Interior Chinatown, starring Jimmy O Yang, who was in, I think he got a breakout role in Silicon Valley.
He's the
hot dog, not hot
Jin
dog
Yang.
guy. Jin Yang, yeah. So Interior Chinatown is this 10 episode series about a guy who is he's a waiter at a Chinatown restaurant that is in a police procedural, but he doesn't know it, and he starts to realize it. And it is all about him kind of figuring out, the whole objective is he wants to figure out what happened to his brother. His brother was like a police informant who died, and he's like, there's so much mystery around it, so much grief. And like a lot of people were like, let's push past it. But he's like, I'm going to figure it out. And the entire show is him trying to figure it out within the confines of a police procedural. So it's like not just a Truman Show thing where he's like, hey, wait a minute, there are people watching me. Like, that's not where this goes. Instead, it's like, he doesn't really recognize it and other people don't. But like when somebody flubs a line, like it'll repeat until the line is told correctly. And some people notice it and other people don't. And everybody's like, what the fuck's happening? And he can't go into certain buildings unless he poses as the role that's required to get into it. So like he can't go into the police department unless he's dropping off food, because that's what a Chinese person would be doing in a police procedural, dropping off Chinese food. And like they do that kind of shit where they're playing with these tropes and like how these people were allowed into these series. And it kind of goes from like early 80s into like the 2000s era of police procedurals. You see it go to True Detective level. And it even does like homaged camera shots, style, lighting, the way that characters talk changes, and the dialogue. So it's a really fascinating show. I wouldn't say that it is like the best show, or that it is even like, I feel like it was kind of messy, a little sloppy at times, but I thoroughly enjoyed what it was trying to do and how it was playing with the tropes of police procedurals.
Nice.
So yeah, would recommend it. So yeah, those are my 2024 honorable mentions.
All right. Ryan, you have anything else?
Yeah, quick talk on superhero movies.
Boo. No, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, so last year I noted that it was really the year people were calling like the death of superhero movies, but there were some really good superhero movies earlier in the year that people kind of forgot about. This year only has 4, as far as I can tell, superhero movies that came out. 3 of which are Sony movies that bombed ridiculously.
Madam Web, Craven,
Venom,
and Venom's
and Joker.
colon.
Is that all 4?
Oh
Joker's
yeah, and
DC,
then I guess Joker counts
but, yeah.
ish. Yeah.
Well,
No, so then that makes 5 if you count Joker as a superhero movie. I guess you do. The only Marvel movie then is Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh right.
Yeah. Which I think of all of those is the only one that's like an above a 50%, because of how bad those were. So this was definitely an absolute abysmal year, but there weren't that many attempts. Marvel's MCU, movies are coming back next year. They took a break to get better, supposedly. Question mark.
About that.
We'll see about that. Deadpool and Wolverine, I did really enjoy. I talked about that before. It's probably something I will come back to and rewatch. It tied in some of the MCU into the like alternate universe, the TVA from the Loki TV show. So it did kind of play a little bit in the MCU world, while mainly being a Deadpool movie with, all the crazy shit from the previous 2 Deadpool movies. I think amped up a little bit even more. I just really enjoyed the meta bullshit of all of it, and I liked that it just kind of it did really poke fun at everything and everyone in all of the superhero stuff, and I think that's honestly what we needed. Probably a good cleanse of everything that's been, and a good poke at everything that was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did you watch I think they released the new Watchmen adaptation this year or this past year?
You had messaged me about that. I haven't watched it. I probably will. I have my reservations.
Only other thing, and it's more limited series now. Like they did more limited series last year. Like you had Penguin and the Creature Commandos.
The Creature Commandos.
I would recommend. That one's pretty solid.
I also do. That was fun.
But yeah, it's been a weird year. Deadpool and Alien Romulus are the 2 movies that I've kind of soured on. Like Deadpool and Wolverine, I was like, I went and saw it and I was like, yeah, it was like pretty good. And then like the more that I think about it, I'm like, I actually don't know that I care too much for it. And then Alien Romulus had the exact same effect. Although I was almost immediately like, well, I don't care for parts of this movie. But then those just started to poison the rest of it in my mind after I left. So it's like, yeah. Dixon, what do you got?
Yeah, I have some genre categories that I'm going to move through fairly quickly here.
Rattle them off.
Best 2024 documentary is Made in England, the films of Powell and Pressburger. I talked about this on the podcast, but it's like a really interesting movie about how Martin Scorsese has been inspired by Powell and Pressburger and like taken what they've done and put it into his films. And it's like cool to see a really skilled artist getting inspired by other artists and putting that into his work. So definitely recommend checking that out. Animated film, Robot Dreams, as we mentioned. Best action movie, Gladiator 2. There weren't a lot of good action movies this year, I think. But Gladiator 2, I did think was an improvement on the first Gladiator, basically just because it was more unhinged and weird.
Agree. Yeah.
Like there's like two emperors that are just want to have sex all the time with like anything that moves, and like Denzel Washington is just great as
so good.
this like evil power hungry person who's like trying to pit the emperors against each other and like climb up the ladder of the Roman Empire. Paul Mescal's all right, or Paul Mescal. He's okay. I think he got a lot of like unfair criticism for that role. He probably wasn't like cast well there, but I thought he did okay. But
yeah.
There were some moments where I was like, oh, this could be like really tearing down the whole thing, but it wouldn't. It like Ridley Scott refused to do that. It like still at the end was about like honor and bullshit. I'm like, oh, okay, like you came really close to just like burning this all to the ground, and I would have really liked it. But overall, it was solid. John, you saw that with me.
Yeah, we saw it in IMAX. And
we did, yeah.
I came out saying that I regret watching Gladiator 1 this year because it made Gladiator 2 like, I don't know, it's just too soon. There were too many flashback sequences in it.
There were, yeah.
I was very disappointed. I feel like that's a sign that somebody in the editing bay or the producers didn't trust the audience to remember what the fuck Gladiator 1 was.
Yep.
But outside of those clips, I felt like it was a superior movie. It should have been Gladiator 1, in my opinion. And that should have just been it. And then I would have been happy because that was some bonkers shit.
Yeah.
Like they're putting sharks in the arena and a whole boat battle that's fucking rad. They have those hairless baboons that kill men.
Oh, yeah. Those
like,
things were horrifying.
Choke them out with chains. I was like, oh my God, Ridley Scott, what's going on, man? Like,
and Denzel Washington, like that's one of my favorite performances of the year.
Oh God, he's chewing scenery much is great.
He's having the time of his life.
Just fucking beautiful. I loved it.
Best horror film was Nosferatu. I do prefer the Herzog version, but the Eggers movie is good. Best foreign language film, Here, directed by Bas de Vos, not directed by Robert Zemeckis. I do want to talk about this one for a little bit because I feel like no one's going to watch it because it has the same name as the Robert Zemeckis movie, which is very unfortunate, but it's a Belgian film. It's like 84 minutes long. It's on Criterion Channel, and it's just a really it's a movie that like kind of feels different than most things that I've seen before. It's about a construction worker in Brussels who has just finished a job and is about to go home for like a month on vacation, and he's trying to clean out his fridge, and in doing so makes some soup and ends up kind of going around to his different friends and family that are in Brussels before he leaves for vacation and gives them all like a thing of like a bowl of soup before he leaves town. And one of the people he meets is a woman who is works at a university. She studies moss, and she just like goes around in forests and like finds moss and like analyzes it. She also works at her aunt's Chinese restaurant, and so they meet when he goes there to eat, and they end up kind of crossing paths later in the film. And it's just kind of, there's not really any plot to it. It's just looking at these two characters as they're living their lives over the course of several days. And it's a movie that makes, like, it's called Here because I think it is why it's called Here, because it just makes you feel very present. Like, it's a beautifully shot movie, very minimalist cinematography. Most of the scenes are still frame. And then you have occasionally the camera does move, and it becomes like really powerful and beautiful when it does, because you're not expecting it to do so. And it kind of pulls you out of the rhythm that you're in. But it's an incredibly peaceful, relaxing movie. The sound design is great. Like, there's a lot of scenes in the forest with like birds and bugs chirping and stuff that just really kind of makes you just kind of feel very in the moment and like kind of part of the world around you as you're watching the film. So it's a very different movie experience, but I really enjoyed it. It was in my top 10 this year. That was my favorite foreign language film. Here by Bas de Vos as the director. My favorite comedy was Hundreds of Beavers, which we talked about. So those are my genre categories for 2024.
Nice. How would you say Here is on? Your description of Here reminds me, not Robert Zemeckis is here. It reminds me of, that should just be the title they change it to, because unfortunately Robert Zemeckis is just going to fucking keep that. What was it? Is it Perfect Days? Is that the other?
Yeah.
Like slow moving.
Perfect Days. Yeah, I could see why you would draw that comparison. I loved Perfect Days. It was a Wim Wenders film that has a kind of Bressonian feel to it that I really liked a lot as well. Kind of a similar vibe, yeah, where it feels very in the moment. It's just about kind of people going about their day, doing simple things, having simple conversations. But it's like, I'm kind of amazed at how good the movie is and how it was able to hold my attention really well. Like I was super drawn into it, and it's a movie that kind of like, because it's so still, it just kind of pulls you into it, and you kind of have to just be on the movie's wavelength and kind of slow your heart rate down and go with it.
Yeah, gotcha.
Cool. So I think that's all that I have as my individual categories. I know, John, you have at least one more.
I have a few more, so I'll bundle them.
Okay.
Let me just talk in a group here about... So I've got some Schlocktober shout-outs, which I think I kind of did when we did the recap, but I just want to reaffirm that there's a movie called Angel in 1984. It's an exploitation film about a child prostitute who becomes like a fucking gun-toting vigilante who kills a serial killer. And it has a family ensemble cast and somehow ends up being way more wholesome than you would expect. I would recommend checking that out. It was kind of fucking rad.
All right.
The Cynic, the Rat, and the Fist, which has our beloved John Saxon that we just talked about Black Christmas. Just another one of those Italian crime movies that's the main protagonist. I think it's back when like lead was in their water. So like the protagonist just busts into rooms and starts punching dudes, and it's just acceptable. That's how he starts any interrogation with any bad guys. And John Saxon is like a drug dealing mob boss who's trying to stop him. It's just fucking great. Fun time.
That sounds like he's well cast.
Yeah. And then Lady Reporter, another Cynthia Rothrock film that maybe I didn't talk about enough, but has so many cool set pieces and kung fu fights.
A Lady Reporter?
Like, yeah. What is this? And I'd figure, since talking about Schlocktober, I would lump in my most perplexing indie film, because I had this category last year, I think.
Oh, yes.
I put Megalopolis because it counts.
It is independently financed.
Independently financed, and it is also schlock, and it is fucking perplexing as hell.
Yes, it is.
So that was my call out there.
Somehow Megalopolis did not make my bottom 10 this year. It was very close, but didn't quite make it.
There's something so weirdly earnest about it, kind of like keeps it floating in this other territory for me.
Yeah,
but I was like, that's going to be wrapped there. And then also adding to that list of like bad and disappointing was Outlaw Johnny Black. That was my biggest disappointment of 2024, was watching that movie and having to sit through it and be like, this is nowhere near as amazing as Black Dynamite was. So those were kind of my half of them, my shout outs to movies that were intended to be bad that ended up being fun via lead poisoning and other means, and then other movies that are just perplexing or disappointing. So yeah, I have one more category round, but we'll get to it when we get to it. So Ryan, what you got?
I'll talk TV and anime, I guess, real quick to wrap that up. As far as live action, Shogun was the best thing that I watched this year. I think just like, production and acting were just knocked it out of the park on that.
Having an actor named Cosmo Jarvis.
No.
You watched one episode of Shogun with me, Dixon.
I did, yeah.
You enjoyed Cosmo Jarvis's performance because he just, to anybody, he was just like, your fucking mother's a whore, and like, and blah, blah, blah. Constantly like shitting on people.
Yeah. It was pretty funny. I also watched Inside Man, which is from the same people that made A Good Place, with starring Ted Danson.
Oh, not the Spike Lee movie.
No, what did I say? No, not the Spike Lee movie. No, it's a Netflix limited series, and it's really heartwarming if you want something to just kind of go in and enjoy and watch, and not much, not high stakes. I think it was really good. I don't think it's one of the best things of the year, but it's a very enjoyable, very palatable, very watchable. It is very funny. It has the same the comedy timing, I guess, of A Good Place. Where it kind of is sort of constantly on top of jokes, but they're never too much or too overwhelming to kind of continue and get to the next thing. But really funny, like really smartly funny. And then I'll hit on anime. I've talked about Frieren, and I think I've probably talked about Apothecary Diaries as well. Those two were the best, like head and shoulders above everybody else as far as anime was concerned this year. Really good. Really looking forward to the sequels this next year. Also a shout out to Dan, which I think is still in its I don't think it's wrapped up its season yet. But that was...
How do you spell Dan?
D-A-N, all one word, Dan.
Dan.
Yep, actually, you just sang the theme song. That no joke. Which actually
Imagine
like
Dragons?
No, yeah, it's by a very up and coming Japanese band that actually broke some kind of record because it topped Taylor Swift's song when it came out.
Nice.
Oh,
take that, Taylor Swift.
Yeah, which is good. It didn't make to radio in America play though level, but
damn.
Real quick, Dan. It is hard to explain. It is very weird, but it's enjoyable in its weirdness. The core plot is there's a guy that's obsessed with UFOs and aliens, but he doesn't believe in ghosts. There's a girl who believes in otherworldly ghost stuff and not UFOs. They challenge each other to go to the UFO guy is going to go to the most haunted place, and he's sending the girl to the most sightings of UFO places at the same time. And they both run into ghosts and UFOs, and then are now stuck in a world where both of those things are real and constantly after the both of them. The guy who believes in UFOs ends up getting cursed by Speed Grandma, for lack of a better name, which is a real believed in ghost myth, like whatever you want to call it, in Japan, where sometimes an old lady comes running up to you while you're in a car and runs at exactly the same speed as you in the window next to you, and you look over and see her.
That's a terrifying legend. Jesus. Why?
Yeah. Honestly, mostly to just fuck with people. Japanese ghosts are amazing. Like 100-year-old umbrellas, they're alive and shit like that is just great. I think I love their ghosts.
That's fucking wild.
Dude, but it is a trippy, constantly running at 100 miles an hour show.
That sounds awesome. Man.
Cool. All right, John, what is your next category for us?
All right, so I'm going to try to wrap up two categories real quick, and then we'll hit on the final category for me.
Can't wait.
So I'll get Best 2024 Limited Series out of the way. It was Penguin. Okay, everybody, I talked about it enough. I would recommend checking out Penguin. It had nothing to do with the Batman. It was all Colin Farrell fucking going hard, swinging for the fences.
Nice.
And it was fucking great. I just really enjoyed how dark it was. And how great it captures like Gotham's crime scene. It was fucking cool. Then I put another one on for Hollywood's Dumbest Fun of 2024.
Oh,
this is a movie that doesn't care if it respects its audience or not. It's just going to make sure that it can get to really dumb, loud things as fast as possible. And of course I had like Deadpool and Wolverine on there. I had Twisters.
Yeah,
this theater isn't equipped to handle this.
Oh, I rolled my eyes so hard when that happened.
I came away this year wondering what is the dumbest movie I watched, and what is I just turned my brain off and had like the stupidest smile on my face while I watched it and came out. And it was Godzilla X Kong. It was just Godzilla X Kong because trying to tell anybody about that movie is like being a 5-year-old. Like you just are like, and then the monkey was given a giant robot arm so that he could fight, but Godzilla also got pink scales because of the way he was exposed to the inner sulfur of nuclear waste. And then the dinosaur that was ridden by the bad monkey man was getting into a fight with him. And like, you just like trying to tell it to anybody, they're just like, shut up. Like, what are you trying to tell me? What is the story? And the movie itself treated it exactly like that as well. Like, everybody speaks in exposition in it, and it's all ludicrously stupid.
Man,
I just couldn't stop laughing parts of that movie.
It's so upsetting to me that Rebecca Hall and Brian Tyree Henry had to spend their time doing that movie. Like,
yes,
two of the best actors working right now that had to do that.
They get into like, there's a scene where like at the very beginning of it, and it sets the tone so well for what the movie is, where they have the little girl from Kong Skull Island. And if you haven't seen it, she's like mute and doesn't really talk. So they use sign language. She's talking with her surrogate mother. She's like, I miss my family. I miss these things. And her mom's like, it's okay. We're going to find your family. And they hug, and it cuts to a wide shot that has a Volkswagen perfectly framed so that the logo is right there. And they're hugging right next to a car commercial. And I laughed so fucking hard. Like, there's like a swell of like really sentimental music over this Volkswagen commercial.
I thought you were going to say, she said like, don't worry, we'll find your family. And then like Godzilla just like came through and stepped on her. Right?
No, it doesn't even do any of it. It's like one of those things though, where I would have expected a voiceover to be like, Volkswagen, find your family. Like, like show them driving across the country. Oh God, it was the dumbest movie ever, and I have the best ideas for where it could go next.
Nice.
So yeah, those are my categories to get out of the way. Now we get to the real thing I want to talk about. My biggest, I don't know what I expected, or what we would like to call the dead dove do not eat category. This is a movie that, you look in the bag, what do you get? You get exactly what the fuck you thought you were going in for. So as a joke, I put menu plaisir le foie gras, because what else do you expect from a Frederick Wiseman movie but to sit for 4 hours in the place that he filmed in? But that was a good movie. The movie that I really want to talk about is one that Dixon and I both watched separately at roughly the same time last night.
I texted John. I was like, I'm doing it. I'm going in. And then he was like, I'm watching in solidarity.
Yes. And that's 2024's Dennis Quaid vehicle, Reagan.
My God.
Oh my God. This movie, Ryan, this fucking Reagan movie. It's okay. Let me just give you the framing device. All right. So we cold open on Reagan getting shot, the assassination attempt, and they're rushing him in, and they're showing like Call of Duty level credits where it's like old footage of like the Soviets and like old footage of everything else. And then it cuts to like present day. And this fucking spiffy looking dude walks into a building, and John Voight's there. And John Voight is playing a Russian and
doing a horrible Russian accent.
Come in, and he's like, I brought you roses, comrade. And he's like, comrade, we're not supposed to use that word anymore. And he's like, I thought I'd do it out of history. And then he's like, comrade Russian man, please tell me, please to translate, how did Russia become such pussy bitch state? And he's like, well, it all started with this man, this boy named Dutch. I'm like, hard cut back to
1941.
And then the rest of the movie is like if Hallmark, they got the Hallmark production crew on loan, and they brought them out to shoot 2.5 hours worth of SNL style sketches that are 10 minutes each and all involve Ronald Reagan at a different era. And the joke for each of them is, isn't it funny how close to Jesus or John Wick Ronald Reagan was at any point in time? And how he made the Russians crap their pants with everything he did?
He was the nicest yet boldest man that ever lived.
I was amazed at how little substance was in the movie.
Oh man, it's 2 hours and 21 minutes, and it has absolutely nothing to say.
It feels like, and when I say every 10 minutes, it's because they would cut back and forth between John Voight telling the story, and then they go right back into it. And the rhythm for each 10-minute segment is the politicians did not like Ronald Reagan, and the Russians also thought he could never do what he was going to do, but his dick is so big that he fucking just slapped that hog on a table, and then he made it happen.
I can't tell if you're doing a Russian or an Italian accent.
It's
John.
both.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
what John Voight's basically doing. I'm trying to do as offensive of a Russian accent as possible so that you understand how terrible John Voight was. And then every time it would always be somebody being like, Ronnie, you can't just do that. And he'd be like, well, I just did. There's my hog right on the table. And I'd be like, oh my God. It was a fucking terrible movie. And they showed, okay, this is the only movie where I laughed when they announced that a real live person's daughter died when she was born. I laughed so fucking hard when they announced that Ronald Reagan's daughter died, because they show a tombstone and it's got like clip art that's superimposed on the tombstone because they didn't have budget to get one cut and they wouldn't make a fucking proper 3D render. And I was like, this is the most inappropriate scene to laugh at, but it looks so bad. It's so fucking stupid. Oh my God. Just amazingly bad.
Yeah. This is the worst de-aging CGI that I've ever seen by far.
Oof.
Dennis Quaid as a 70-year-old is playing Reagan as early as 1941, when he would have been 30 years old. And it's like they have airbrushed him away where he just looks like a rubber mask of himself. Like he doesn't have any pores in his skin anymore. Like it's just so weird and disturbing to look at. Like people laughed at The Irishman. This is so much worse.
need to see
oh
this.
my God. Like it's just so bad. The level of bullshit anti-communist propaganda in this is wild. Like any union work is communist, right?
Yeah.
It's the commies that did it. Like, oh my God, heaven forbid that people like try to fight for better wages and a better life for themselves. Those are commie bastards. And like, Reagan is running SAG. Like he's the president of the Actors Union. And there's this effort in Hollywood to try to merge all the unions together into one so that they have better negotiating power, which like makes sense.
Yeah.
And the whole story is like, no, actually it's the communists who are trying to infiltrate Hollywood. And the way they're going to do it is by merging all the unions together. And then they're going to like get communist propaganda into the movies and like change America from within. And also it's like, okay, that's complete bullshit, first of all. And like Ronald Reagan is like the one guy that kept it from happening.
Saved it.
Yeah.
Like just being the head of SAG and telling the guy who wanted to merge all the unions to fuck off. He saved America and saved Hollywood by doing that. And like the whole movie is like communism is the worst thing that's ever happened. And the only way to defeat it is by like staring them in the face and telling them to go away. And it's like that's why it reminded me of War Game. And like, it's amazing how bad both of these movies are. It was so hard to pick my worst movie of the year.
You definitely know that you're in for a time when you see Kevin Sorbo show up. Because he shows up as like a priest, Ryan, and like young child Reagan is talking to him and is just like, he's like, well, you have to be this old to get baptized and you have to go through these confirmations and whatever else. And he's like, no, I've got to have it now. I need my soul cleansed. But like, and then like Nancy Reagan showing up, she's just like, Ronnie Reagan, you're so righteous and cool. I'm just here to ride your dick and tell you that I love my family's name and I'll defend my family from anybody so that you know that I'll defend you. And then she's just there to be like, you need to do more, Ronnie. Do more for the people. I know it's hard, but you need to deploy the National Guard on these college students. Yeah.
There's a scene where there are hippies protesting at Berkeley and outside the state capitol in California. And Reagan is just like, these kids don't even know what they're protesting about. You know, these fucking idiots. And, you know, they hate America and blah, blah, blah. And you just have to like sternly tell them to go home. And then they have no idea what to do and they'll just leave. just like that's how he solves every problem.
Yes.
It's just by like being crazy, being like a nut, like just hard enough about it and just speaking sternly enough, and like then people will just, oh, okay, sorry, I didn't know I was dealing with a crazy person over here. I guess
it reminds me of that scene in Interstellar when they're trying to match rotation on that fucking spaceship, and one of the characters is like, it's not possible, and Matthew McConaughey goes, no, it's necessary, and so it happens.
Yeah.
And that's what the movie feels like again and again. Like, I thought I was caught in a fucking time loop because it just kept going back and forth to somebody being like, Ronald, you can't do that. And he's like, well, I just did. And then you're like, well, I guess he did. And the movie just moves on until it gets to the point where he gets Alzheimer's. And they're like, they do a Where Are They Now at the very end of it. And I was like, I don't give two shits about where any of these people are. But like it introduced that framing device and then dropped that framing device of like the Russians telling the story. And then it just goes to like, let's watch Ronald Reagan's final twilight hour as he rides off into the sunset on a horse, which is funny because it looks like they didn't know what to film or how to film it. And so Dennis Quaid kind of like loses control of the horse and is like trying to steer it. It's like, man, he really acted well as Ronald Reagan. He doesn't know where he is right now. Like,
what was the thought behind getting Sean McNamara for this?
Fuck if I know.
He's the guy that did the like Three Ninjas, High Noon at Mega Mountain with Hulk Hogan, the Baby Geniuses movies, the Bratz movies. Like, I don't know, like everything he's worked on is an absolute disaster.
I mean, I don't think you could really get a self-respecting director to make this movie. Like the script
no one else would shine.
The script is so bad. Like even if you actually are a like staunch Republican that loves Reagan and you want to make a biopic about this guy, it's a horrible script. Like I like watching the movie, it seemed like a satire about made by somebody who wanted to show that Reagan was stupid, but it clearly isn't. But like it's so unself-aware, like just so wild to me. Like seeing Reagan try to solve all these problems by just being an insane person. Like they talk about him trying to negotiate with Gorbachev to denuclearize. And it's like he's viewed as this hero because he throws away the entire denuclearization treaty because he won't get rid of the Star Wars program. Like, fucking wild. Like, he could have signed a treaty with Gorbachev where we could have had way fewer nukes in the world and maybe gotten rid of them by now. Like, Gorbachev wanted to fully denuclearize and wanted to work with Reagan to do that. But Reagan was insane and refused to actually engage with them in good faith negotiations. And, like, you go from Reagan turning down getting rid of all the nuclear weapons in the world to doing a speech in front of the Berlin Wall, and like the climax of the movie is him giving his speech in front of the Berlin Wall, and they flash to the speechwriter's room and they're so excited. They think they've written the most brilliant speech of all time. Like, is he gonna say it? Is he gonna say it? And then he goes, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And then they're like, 2 years later, the Soviet Union tore down the wall, and then communism ended forever, and the Soviet Union fell apart. And it's like, wait a minute, you're implying that just because he said that and made that grandstanding speech, that's why the Soviet Union crumbled? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
That's where the logic gap
to fall over.
Yeah, 2 years later, when someone else was president, they took down the wall, and
it was amazing. Yeah, and you say that's the climax, and it literally feels like this movie creams its jeans for that fucking speech.
Yeah.
Because up until then, it's like slow moving and you have these like 1-2 shots in every scene. And then they suddenly have like 10 fucking cuts of Reagan dropping the mic in front of the fucking Berlin Wall. And everybody's like fucking just jizzing in their pants.
Yeah. That
he's like, oh my God, he said it. He's tearing down the wall. Oh, fuck.
After he tells Gorbachev to fuck off, he brings a speechwriter in. He's like, son, I'm going to start the biggest war this century has ever seen, but I'm going to do it with words. I'm not going to fire a shot. And now I'm realizing how similar Reagan sounds to Mr. Burns and Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But and then he like just goes on this crazy ass campaign where he just starts criticizing the Soviet Union and calling them all a bunch of like evil, the evil empire and all these horrible people. And his Secretary of State comes in and he's like, I can't do this. I can't stand for this. Like, Gorbachev is the only friend we've had in the Soviet Union ever. Like, he wants to work with. You can't go around saying this shit. Yeah. And he's like, I'm gonna do it anyway. And then it's just like the movie is showing how stupid Reagan is, but it's it's like trying to say that he's like a hero for doing all this and that he
Yeah.
made the right decisions and all this. And oh yeah, the world we live in now where we're trying to get into a war with Russia again and we have way more nukes than we did at the time. This is the legacy of Ronald Reagan. That's
Pretty
what
amazing.
you want? Like fucking insane.
Anyways, it was a fun time for just doing Reagan impressions and shitting on it, but it sucked other than that. Like I was texting Dixon, like even the fucking landscape shots, which you would think they'd get like, they shot in Oklahoma and they were trying to get like sweeping shots of landscapes and whatever. It's all trash, like shitty drone footage, really choppily shot, like pretty sure.
There's a scene where he takes Nancy on a horse riding date and they go to like look at this beautiful vista where they get off their horses and it's just a different shot of a place where they are not currently there. And then they have a green screen shot of them kissing over the like plains that are clearly somewhere else.
Yeah.
What the hell is this? Like there's so much green screen in this movie. I have no idea why they needed to do that.
Just it's budgetary. It's all budgetary.
They couldn't find a field.
Couldn't find a
There are
field.
plenty of fields that they actually shot in other scenes that were real. Like they couldn't have just done the scene there. No, crazy.
Oh man, I look forward to the Jimmy Carter movie that will come out. So yeah. Anyways, that was I don't know what I expected. I got Dead Dove Do Not Eat when I looked in that bag.
Yeah. Oh my God, Ryan, do you have anything else?
I think we covered it.
All right, we're to the final two, right?
Okay, yes. So we're coming back together and doing some joint topics. So one that we always do that I always find interesting is a perspective-changing movie. So something you watched this year that changed your perspective, whether on movies or on life or anything in particular. Ryan, what did you watch this year that changed your perspective?
I'm gonna say Gladiator.
Whoa!
From a perspective on movies, that was something I remember being good and remember liking. It's something that comes up all the time as people saying like, "Oh, it was great, it was great." The fact that they were making a sequel at all, and us going and revisiting it, it was interesting partway through the movie where I just kind of was like, "I don't like this." Like I just kind of had the feeling where I'm like, this sucks. Like, what? Why? And then I kind of sat through the rest of the movie being like, what is it that's really just not good about this movie? And then being able to kind of look at it from the, like, what is it that's not good about this movie, but that makes people think that it's good?
Yeah.
Perspective was kind of interesting. So, yeah, it was definitely something I thought about. And looking back at something from that time period, the early 2000s is definitely when I was figuring out movies and like what was good and what I liked. We also watched Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which revisiting was enjoyable. So there's sort of that like, yeah, I remember that being good and it was, and I remember Gladiator being good and it wasn't. Was kind of interesting to revisit like why and what made those movies lasting or not lasting.
Interesting. Yeah. I definitely had a lot of similar thoughts on Gladiators. Like I loved this when I was a teenager and now I'm like, yeah, this it's very well made, but it has lots of problems. It feels like Hollywood was just obsessed in like the 90s and 2000s with like sword and sandal dramas. And just if you made one, it was going to get a bunch of awards.
Big
and
epic,
Gladiator was one of those movies.
Remember when they remade Ben-Hur?
Yeah, I never watched that.
Oh man, what a fucking time! Way to go, Hollywood! And
What
they're
a
gonna make
time to be
Cleopatra again. Can't wait for Cleopatra with Gal Gadot.
Oh man,
so good. No way it could bomb.
Who would be Richard Burton's character?
Oh yeah,
Michael Fassbender.
yeah. Oh man.
All right, John, what was your perspective changing movie?
So I got a pair that were perspective changing. They both hit during Schlocktober. I watched American Movie, which I had not seen and had always kind of known about. And then I watched Final Flesh, which was a Vernon Chapman film that I think I told you all about, where Vernon Chapman just paid like 4 different adult pornography making small independent production studios to make a movie that he wrote. And so this year's kind of perspective shift was what constitutes a movie and how do you make a movie, like how you can make one, because American movie is very uplifting and funny in it's kind of like just this guy struggling to make anything and his short film being like the sole focus of a 3-year project. It's very uplifting. To counter that with somebody who literally was like, I can just pay a company and they'll make these humans do whatever I tell them to do. And that's the movie. Very different approaches to filmmaking and the passion that's put into the different parts of it. And Final Flesh, I feel like, is probably would be more funny in like a fraternity situation where a bunch of frat guys are watching it and are like, oh my God, this is fucking insane. Or friends that are just watching something unhinged, as opposed to American movie where it gives you a whole context on a short film right before you watch it. It's like an hour and a half build up to 12 minutes. So both of those combined have, I would say, nudged my perspective a little bit more towards something more positive to like what it takes for me to get into making a film or making a short film, that kind of thing. Not to say that I'm going to pay a bunch of pornography, like sex workers or anything to make a movie, but I know it's an option now, everybody. And I also know that that technically counts as a movie. So I can use it to be like, what am I making? Well, you know, my movie's not that bad, or my movie's not this.
You could use it to like make a rough draft of your movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I could have some amateur actors do that. And maybe they want to. Who knows? Sometimes I feel like the acting is the most fun part that pornographic actors have. They don't want to do the sex stuff as much. But yeah, anyways, those are my two perspective changing in the industry sense and like how what I look at when I'm looking at like making a film. Just interesting.
Cool. I have two as well. One is Emilia Perez, which is a Netflix movie that came out earlier this year.
Selena Gomez?
Yes, Selena Gomez is in it. She's kind of a side character. Zoe Saldana and Carla Sofia Gascon play the leads. It's about a drug dealer like a evil, menacing drug dealer who decides to go off the grid by having a sex change. And Zoe Saldana is an attorney who he hires to help find a doctor that will do the sex change and like keep it under wraps and keep it hidden. Then Zoe Saldana meets this drug dealer a few years later, now as a woman who is like, you know, hiding from the law. And it's a very interesting thriller movie. The reason I had it as perspective changing is because it's such a weird mash of genres. Like it's a thriller drama musical, and it's like doing a lot of things at the same time. And it comes together in a weird way, but like at the end of the day, it worked and I really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of times when movies try to do something big like that and pull in multiple genres, especially if you add a musical component to it, I feel like it's kind of a recipe for disaster. And I went to see it, I was like, this is going to be wild. And it was crazy, but I actually really liked it. So interesting, like genre mash that, you know, kind of made me rethink like what you can do with a movie, and like you can make a serious movie with people breaking out into song and it can still work. The other movie that I had is a movie that I saw this weekend called Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat that I thought was really interesting. It's a documentary about the CIA and the Belgian government conspiring to assassinate Patrice Lumumba, who was the first democratically elected leader of the Congo. And it's kind of this interesting story about all of these different pieces kind of coming together in that assassination. It's the reason it's called Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat is because it features a lot of American jazz musicians. And at that time, the US government was sending jazz musicians out to other countries around the world to have concerts and like promote American ideology. So like Louis Armstrong was being sent to the Congo to do concerts and to like get people to like America.
Wow.
And Nina Simone actually was sent by this group called something bullshit like Americans for Peace in Africa or something, but it was just the CIA. And she like didn't realize that the government was behind it, but like they were sending these musicians over there, sometimes knowing that the government was doing it and sometimes not, to, you know, for nefarious means to, you know, kind of pave the way for American colonialism or American influence on their
weaponized
societies.
jazz. I've
I know.
never thought of that.
Yeah. and jazz is such an art form that was like, came up in, like poverty and oppressed people in America that invented this art form. It's like really the only uniquely American art that we have, and, used to nefarious ends is upsetting to see. But the movie is edited in a jazzy manner where like there's not really a lot of narration. It's a lot of clips from the time interspersed together in a way that sometimes makes sense and sometimes doesn't. And there's a lot of jazz music overlaying the film. There's a lot of commentary from Malcolm X comparing the American civil rights plight to what was going on in the Congo at the time and their fight for freedom and independence from Belgium, and the way the U.S. government was, basically trying to run the Congo and trying to, suppress the black experience in America as well. So like there are a lot of things that are really interesting, and like, it was in a time where the United Nations actually like mattered, and there were, people actually had value in what was going on there. There's a lot of speeches by Khrushchev and things that were pretty interesting. But at the end of the day, it worked for me and it didn't at the same time. It was too long. It's 2.5 hours. And I felt like it had all these different ideas that were really cool, and they didn't kind of all come together in a super satisfying way. But it was a lot of really interesting ideas, and it was just a very different approach to filmmaking, very loose form, kind of just showing you lots of information and letting you kind of put the pieces together and tie it together. So perspective shifting from a filmmaking standpoint, but also from like, thinking about, kind of what seems harmless and like Louis Armstrong is doing a concert in Africa. That's cool. It's like, oh no, actually it's a CIA front. And there are like a bunch of CIA people there that are acting like they're setting up this concert, but are then like doing nefarious things in the background to try to unseat the leader of the country. And, makes me rethink, like USO tours and things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, there's probably a bunch of like awful shit going on behind the scenes here, but yeah.
The Expendables of jazz. Wow. That's fucking wild though.
Yeah.
To even think that like, what is that going to be like? I just had a picture of like a Nick Fury sort of thing. Louis Armstrong gets off stage in like some country performance like here in the States, and like he goes backstage to get a cigarette, and it's just a dude who's like, "Your country needs you, Mr. Armstrong." Like two guys step out of the shadows.
It's just like Triple X.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're right.
Only a jazz musician can take down the government of the Congo.
Triplets.
There's also a weird side story about Dizzy Gillespie and his run for president in 1960, which I did not know was a thing, but like he actually ran for president, and like he was going to have like Miles Davis and like other, Thelonious Monk in his cabinet.
Oh, amazing.
And, like, it's like, man, that would have been badass if that had happened.
Holy shit.
But it was a good movie. I wish it had been edited a little bit tighter and it kind of like brought the separate threads together in a more satisfying way. But it's a fascinating movie, and definitely recommend checking it out. If you can sit through the whole 2.5 hours, it's a fascinating watch.
Hey, I sat through Reagan. I think I
you
can sit
did.
through this.
You did, yeah. It's only 9 minutes longer than Reagan. Cool. Okay, well, that brings us to what we're looking forward to in 2025. Ryan, anything in 2025 that you're excited about?
Yeah, as far as movies, Mithrigan, Mithrigan 2.0.
Oh, man. It's not Maforgan?
Yeah, I think it's poorly named, but I am looking forward to it. As stupid as it's probably going to be, as stupid as it ought to be. I'm looking forward to that. After the recent trailer, I think I'm probably going to go see the Superman movie.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned Creature Commandos earlier, John. I watched that. And I'm in for James Gunn. I know Dixon's feelings on James Gunn, but it's interesting. I think he's going more in the direction I want to see with DC. It's a weird universe. There's a back catalog of a bunch of different characters and heroes. They have all this history to pull from, and it's just something different. So I am looking forward to that. I think I'll probably also see the Avatar movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't think
we get another Avatar this year.
Fire Nation.
It's a Fire Nation. Everything was fine. Then the Fire Nation attacked.
Got the plant people and the water people and now the fire people.
That's
Right.
Is it going to be completely scored by Earth, Wind, and Fire? Did they get that?
Ooh, that would be good. That would be really
They're going
good.
to have subtitled other animals? I hope so.
I enjoyed the last one. I know, but it's just as an action movie. Like James Cameron, I think can just do action really well, like even if it's stupid. And so I'm looking forward to that. There's a few
he's
anime.
turning this into like a Pokemon thing.
Yeah, no, totally. Gotta get every one of them.
So many new designs.
Yeah. Looking forward to Witch Hat Atelier. That is a manga I've read now for a bit that I think is going to be a pretty decent hit. It's an interesting, like it's about a girl like learning to be a witch in this universe. It spends a lot of time on its world building and has a really solid magic system that's like absolutely clear what it is. Like they explain it every step of the way. Where magic is done by drawing like runes, drawing circles on a piece of paper or shoes or whatever, and then it imbues it with that particular power. And there's a whole system of like, if you draw that, it makes wind. If you draw this, it's water. If you draw it bigger, it's more powerful. If it's smaller, it's less. And it's really interesting how they continue to use and build that up. And it's just a fun story to go along. There's going to be a Chainsaw Man movie.
Chainsaw Man.
It is just one of the arcs from the Chainsaw Man show, so you have to have already kept up with Chainsaw Man.
Does he have chainsaws for arms?
Just chainsaw for head.
He has chainsaws. No, he has chainsaws for arms and a head.
Oh.
And then also he can make other limbs and multiple chainsaws. He can just become like a pile of chainsaws.
He gets chainsaws when he's horny? Is that what it is?
No, he like pulls he has like a chainsaw starter on his chest, and he pulls that.
Is Nicolas
whenever he
Cage in
wants to.
this?
He should be.
Dude, Nicolas Cage would be great. Actually, if it was a young Nicolas Cage, he would be perfect for the main character, because the main character is like a total weirdo, horny degenerate that will like do anything to like touch a boob. Like that's it, at the start of the comic and anime. That's like his highest ambition.
It's Cashback with chainsaws.
Yes.
Amazing.
But I think that it being a movie, it's going to be done by Studio Mappa as well, so they get some extra money to make a movie. It's going to be fucking bizarre, awesome visuals. So definitely looking forward to that.
Nice. John, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I don't know if Noir Spider-Man comes out this year, but if Nicolas Cage,
I mean, I'll watch it.
That's happening.
Yeah, I'll watch it.
I'm just going to say off the bat. In 2025, one actually just came out. I'm looking forward to the Wallace and Gromit movie.
Oh.
I haven't watched a Wallace and Gromit in so long, and it's all like the hand animation just looks gorgeous. So I'm happy to watch a comical.
I watched the Shaun the
thing.
Sheep movie a few years ago that I thought was really good. Farmageddon, I believe it was called.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's that dry British humor and the puns that they do. I'm just like, okay. But I watched Wallace and Gromit when I was a kid. I have not watched it ever since. And so I just kind of saw that that's coming out. I'm looking forward to The Companion with Jack Quaid. I don't know what the fuck that movie is, but I want to see it.
Oh.
It looked interesting because it's like him in some relationship with a woman. I don't know if either of them can die or what the fuck it is. I just remember the trailer has him holding a gun to her and her hands on fire at a dinner table. And she's just like burning and not reacting to it at all. And I was like, all right, I'm interested to know what the fuck this is.
Some sort of superhero thing?
I don't think so. I think it's a thriller of some sort and some weird other thing. I am looking forward to Superman, because I think James Gunn is doing what I would like out of superhero movies, which is he's already made sure that there are going to be movies that people know if it's part of a canon. And then there's going to be weird other shit that we just fucking do because it's cool. And I'm tired of seeing a Marvel thing after Marvel thing that has to build on top of each other fucking Marvel thing. Mm-hmm. And it'll be just nice to have some other vein of DC where they're like, you know what? Fuck it. We should just be making cool stories because that's what it's supposed to be. Doesn't matter if we're winking or nodding to other shit. Like, fine. So it sounds like that's going to be good. And then, Avatar as well. I heard there's potentially an untitled Paul Thomas Anderson film.
Yes, that was on my list.
It's on my list.
Starring Leo DiCaprio.
Oh, it's okay. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Mickey 17 It's also on my list. The Bong Joon-ho film.
Oh yeah, that
with
looks
Robert
great.
Pattinson.
Yeah.
That looks pretty good. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Not because I want to see it, but because I want them to be fucking done with Mission Impossible movies, and I'm hopeful Tom Cruise will stop running on screen after this.
I doubt it.
Yeah,
They're gonna have to take his goddamn legs for him to stop running on screen.
he's gonna have to play Lieutenant Dan in the Forrest Gump remake.
Dead Reckoning Part 1 was so bad.
Yeah, I remember you talking about
like,
it.
I actually really liked the more recent Mission Impossible films from like Ghost Protocol and I forget what they were all called, Fallout, and there was another one in there. But I thought they were actually really good, just a lot of really good practical stunts. But I hated Dead Reckoning Part 1, so I will see this one as well. But I'm not optimistic.
Yeah, when do we get Fast X2, Dixon?
Good
When is that
question.
coming out?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't say I'm looking forward to it based on how Fast X ended.
Yeah.
Oh,
but I just want it to be.
As a follow-up, I am 3 Fast and Furious movies deep into watching Fast and the Furious movies.
Oh,
So we started working through it.
All right.
so you just got done with Tokyo Drift.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised how much I enjoyed the second Fast and the Furious movie.
Too Fast, Too Furious.
Greatest sequel title of all time.
Trace Fast, Trace Furiosa. 4 Fast, Press Furious.
Yeah, my second watching of Tokyo Drift, and honestly, I did enjoy it. It is that afterwards I wanted to write it into a slightly better movie. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as far as a movie with a plot and themes, it's probably the only one in the Fast and the Furious franchise. I'll put my money down that's actually has that. I bet it's just more action from here.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
You're so close to Fast 5.
Yeah.
5 through 9 are pretty great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to breaking through the other side of Fast 4 and 5 to get to something new.
You watching it with Logan? Is that what you said?
No, this is just Darla. Yeah, Darla and I watched. It was honestly, we were sitting around looking for something to do. We had some free time. She was like, we had a day with like nothing, and she's like, "Do you want to start just watching all the Fast and Furious franchise?" And I was like, "I'll make the guys happy, sure."
Yeah, sure, why not?
So we knocked out the first 3.
Nice.
I feel like Logan needs redemption after he was mad from the Fast and Furious ride that you went on when he said that was fast and I'm furious.
Yes.
Well, good. I'm glad that you're catching up, Ryan. You can just don't worry about Fast X until Fast X2 comes out.
Well, we watched Fast X, so
oh, that's
so
right.
I need to close the
it,
gap.
so then fuck it. There you go. And then the final movie that I'm excited for is just Tron. The fucking Tron. I don't care. I don't really care how it turns out. It's just Tron's and now this like franchise that has bombed twice and is probably going to bomb again. And I'm just like, fuck it. I want to know what you're going to Tron. What are we going to do in the digital world? Are you going to give fucking Tron 3 discs now or some shit? How's this going to work?
Be so much blacklight.
Yeah, Jared Leto's in it, and the director said it's grittier now. What? We haven't gotten gritty in Jared Leto since any of the other movies he's been in. So, that's my lineup for 2025. I'm looking forward to all of those for one reason or another.
You took some of mine, but I will say, I mentioned earlier, there are a decent amount of 2024 releases in name only that haven't actually gotten to real people yet that I'm excited about seeing. The Brutalist, starring Adrian Brody, has gotten really great reviews. It was shot in VistaVision on film, which is pretty cool. So I'm excited to see that when it comes out. Hoping to get a chance to see it on film if I can. And then Nickel Boys was one of the best reviewed films of the year, and I was really excited about that. I wanted to watch that before this podcast, but I have been physically unable to do so. So very excited for that. I think they both come out very shortly, like potentially like the January, like early to mid January. So they may be out in theaters by the time you hear this podcast. So keep an eye out for those. The PTA movie with Leo is definitely like top on my list of things that I'm looking forward to this year. And then kind of a joke looking forward to is Happy Gilmore 2 had a teaser trailer drop about a week ago. I don't know why we need another Happy Gilmore movie. The first one was great. and I'm not sure what they're going to do without Carl Weathers now.
Carl Weathers is barely cold.
Yeah, and they killed him off in the first movie anyway, so his character was dead. But yeah, I have a soft spot in my heart for Happy Gilmore. I actually caught about 20 minutes of it on cable TV a couple months ago, and I was like, oh, this actually still holds up. This is actually really funny. And I always thought it was Sandler's best work of his, comedy films with all his friends. And I will go see Happy Gilmore 2. I do not think it's going to be good, but I'm going to be there and I'll see it. And I'm there's a small part of me that hopes that there's going to be something there, but I do not believe that that will come to fruition.
I would believe it if it was written and directed by a Safdie brother.
Yeah.
I believe that something good might come of it, but I don't think that's true.
There's a 2025 movie directed by one of the Safdies. The Safdies are splitting apart now. They're doing their own things.
Yeah.
One of the Safdie is directing a movie that I think it's like a mixed martial arts film starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Amazing. Okay.
And The Rock made a comment recently. He's like, "Oh wow, I really liked doing this. I actually had like an interesting character to play and dig into. I might do more independent films going forward." It's like,
oh yeah,
I don't believe that for a second, but that would be fascinating to me if The Rock was in a bunch of random like Fox Searchlight films about like somebody falling in love with an old woman or something.
He could talk to Dave Bautista about how to break that character mold.
Yeah.
Dave Bautista's done it.
Yeah. But yeah, so that could be interesting as well. So I think there's a lot of things in 2025 that are, going to be interesting to see. So
wouldn't say it's going to be a great year for film yet. I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, I think 2024 has been the worst year for film since I started aggressively watching everything that was coming out. And, it's, by a wide margin, I think. Like there hasn't been as much good stuff coming out this year. I think studios are in a weird place where they don't know what to do anymore because everything that has historically made money isn't making money now, and like they're losing money on superhero movies and other things, and like it feels like their risk tolerance has pulled back across the board, where you're not getting as much interesting independent work as much either. And I don't know. It feels like the studios are kind of regrouping this year, and I don't know what they're going to do, but a lot of stuff too that, it's like, why didn't that get into theaters? Like a movie that I didn't get to watch yet from 2024 that I want to watch, Night Bitch with Amy Adams, where she like turns into a dog at night or something. And it's like a Fox Searchlight movie, like, Amy Adams is fucking great. Like, why wouldn't that be in theaters? And it just goes straight to Hulu. And like, I didn't even realize it was out because it just went straight to Hulu. The only reason I knew it was out is because I was at my girlfriend's parents' house over Christmas, flipping through their streaming options and realized that it was on Hulu. So I was like, now I can watch it. But I feel like a lot of stuff that could have been interesting theatrical releases was just quietly dumped online. And, if you happen to be paying attention, then you found it. If you didn't, you didn't.
Yeah. This is like, I don't know what Hollywood's going to do because they just are so dedicated now to, we just got to make like name recognition. Let's split Wicked into 2 parts. Let's do this other shit. Like, let's really just make some guaranteed hooks that'll keep people coming into the theater for the things they expect to see. I hope that they can break away from that, or that some indie film will start, doing another, like Everything Everywhere All at Once. I feel like Everything Everywhere All at Once kind of, I wouldn't say ruined A24, but it did some stuff that changed A24.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have the same sense, Dixon. But after that, I feel like A24 has been taking heavier swings for other things. And sometimes it's like not even caring what the swing might be.
Yeah. I feel like it used to be that like you go see an A24 movie and like there was a 90% chance that it was going to be really good. And now it's like, there's a 60% chance that it's going to be really good. And like, it feels like they are broadening their horizon into stuff that like, there's a void there where studios are not making things, and they're coming in and picking that up and putting stuff out, which is cool. But their quality control seems to have gone down a little bit, I think, or their like standards for what they would put their name on has changed.
I think that they should split off into a subsidiary label or something that identifies those ones as being whatever this other genre driven thing is. 'Cause that would be, I don't know. I'd be still cool with it, but
they also didn't do Sean Baker's movie this year, which I thought was surprising. Anora was put out by Neon.
Neon did that.
And A24 has done, most of his other recent work. So
it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
But
Cool. Any other thoughts on 2024 or 2025 before we wrap this thing?
I don't regret showing y'all Primevals. I just wanted to get that out in the open. I think it was worthwhile to watch some stop motion, but yes, a lot of that movie was a drag.
Yeah.
The stop motion was good.
I hope to see more Ray Harryhausen stop motion in other movies. Feel like it's fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
I did start this year by watching Beetlejuice, which I just was like sick and was like, I'm going to throw on something I don't care if I like it or not. And I ended up liking most of that and was like, okay, it's fine. It had a lot of good mixed influences and felt like Tim Burton wasn't being controlled by a studio for once. So
there's been a lot of people that have asked me about that movie, and I've been like, oh, I haven't seen it. And they're like, what? But the first one is so nostalgic. And I'm like, but I haven't seen the first one. So
people
it's not
trying to appeal
for
to
me.
Yeah.
Like
people trying to appeal to Dixon's nostalgia. That's the wrong way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. It's like, cool, whatever.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that wraps up our 2024 year-end retro spectacular. I have been your host, Michael Dixon. With me, as always,
Ryan King. We'll see you next year, I guess, is what the idea is, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Who
knows?
We'll see.
If we don't all die from a nuclear holocaust.
Oh yeah. We're actually already recording this. Like the mics are actually cut. That you follow it to the wall. It's not even plugged in.
Yeah.
And
well, it's me, John Garcia. Friends call me Dutch.
why? No one knows. We're not going to explain that one at all.
His father used to call him Dutch. Just remember, if anybody tells you that you can't do something, just fucking sack up and say, well, I just did. And then they'll go, oh, I guess we'll let you do it. And
oh my God, he just checkmated me. I feel like they should have had him as a kid walking around in little wooden shoes. Like, they call me Dutch because I always wore these little shoes.
Oh my God. Now I want a movie. I want a sequel. Can we make Reagan 2? Where he comes back from the dead to assemble a crack team of conservatives?
Yes, we can definitely make that movie.
Ronnie, I thought you were dead. Well, that's what I wanted them to think.
I just told
Ronnie,
God
you
I'm
can't
coming
raise
back.
yourself from the dead. I just did.
Yeah, deal with it.
I've been in contact. It's like got surprise cameos from people you'd never expect. Well, I got Charlemagne the God, and he's waiting for us at the old jelly bean factory. Okay, anyways, that's a fun diatribe. And also our host.
Yeah, I have been Michael Dixon. Thank you so much for putting up with our bullshit.
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.